You kind of need to go through the valley of darkness. It's intensely isolating, maddening, lonely. You will explore every nook and cranny of your mind. I was much more draconian when I was in my early 20s. I stayed up late every single night. I'd play computer games, never do my homework. I knew that I was not strong. I knew I was not somebody who I respected, and I was not somebody who was strong enough to be able to take care of other people.
Are you serious?
Right, there's a version of me that's on a beach just getting fat and eating Cheetos and watching VR. And like maybe that version is really happy. And I don't think that's right. I don't think that it's true that it's not happiness, but it's not flourishing. That's the way I think about it for a human being. It may be a happy process to flourish. It may not be a happy process to flourish, but becoming the fullest flower that you can be, that's what flourishing means. Society on the whole become more feminized over the last 30 years. For boys that are in schooling, they are basically taught to repress their masculine instincts. And all of this stuff results in a society where we see increasingly disparate outcomes earlier on in life between men and women. Everybody dies twice. One time when your body dies, the second time.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Luba Show. Today my guest is Haseeb Qureshi, managing partner of Dragonfly Capital, a $4 billion crypto venture capital fund. And him and I talk about such a rich variety of things, ranging from manhood, crypto, Airbnb, where we both met almost 10 years ago, and so many more things. This was a particularly fun conversation because, again, we've known each other for such a long time. Probably going to be celebrating our 10th year friendship anniversary next year. So it was really fun to spend time with someone who's as smart, as thoughtful as Haseeb is, but also someone that I know so well and probably haven't covered some of these topics as in much depth. Haseeb, I'm really excited to have you here. Welcome to the Luba Show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I'm really excited to start actually where we first met.
Okay.
Let me set the scene.
Please.
So I was at Airbnb's micro kitchen, and you were walking in to the micro kitchen.
Because they have many micro kitchens.
Yes,
I think we were at Cairo.
Yes, good memory. It was Cairo. Yeah, and I distinctly, so to set the scene again, you just wrote that negotiation blog post that went viral in the tech community. And the blog post was basically about you getting all these different tech offers, and it was very controversial to disclose salaries back then. But in the blog post, you very openly and transparently talked about what Yelp has given you, what Google has given you, what Airbnb has offered you, and the fact that you then negotiated Airbnb from whatever, like 120 to 250 total comp or something along those lines. And to paint that blog post going viral, Business Insider had this really popular article about you with your face plastered on it. And it felt really douchey. Like it just kind of, felt like, who is this asshole guy talking about making so much money? And so I, of course, have seen this blog post, and I remember you walking into the micro kitchen, and I had this thought, wow, this is that douchebag guy with the blog post.
Wow. I don't think you ever put in quite those words before. Thank you.
But then, we start talking, and within minutes, my opinion of you completely 180'd. In fact, you also convinced me to join the team that you were on because I was in the boot camp at the time, and you were working on fraud prevention or risk, as it was called. And I actually decided to join that team because your pitch of it was so convincing, and you were actually so likable.
What was my pitch?
In comparison to the article, what was your pitch? I think you were telling me how I'm going to learn so much as a backend engineer, and I've never done backend before, and how fraud is like a cat and mouse game, and I'd be learning so much about so much.
That was my pitch. Wow, I do not remember pitching you. No.
Yeah, you pitched me and you got me convinced. So basically, you've kind of like completely changed that first impression that I didn't even have from meeting you, but had from the article.
Yeah.
But do you remember that?
I remember meeting you in Cairo. I don't remember pitching you on the risk team. I remember, my first memory was I remember I came to help you debug something.
Okay.
That's like the first memory. Happens. But I remember meeting you in Cairo, but. And you were like grabbing some
popcorn,
snacks?
probably.
Some popcorn, yeah. You probably grabbing some popcorn. And I remember talking to you for a little bit. I did not remember convincing you or anything, but I remember helping you debug something. And you were the newest intern on the team, or no? You
No, it was full time.
You just graduated from becoming an intern. You were the newest person on the team. You're the most junior, and I of course had just joined the team.
Yeah.
And I felt naturally after writing this blog post that went super viral, that was kind of a very revealing post about going through this very arduous, crushing job search that was going nowhere, and then suddenly it finally started to get. I think I talked about applying to like 30 companies, not getting a single call back.
And I think
then
you had 12 offers.
Yeah, and then I finally, 8 offers. I finally ended up getting 8 offers and culminating in Airbnb, which was a super hot company at the time. And so I, fresh off of that, writing that blog post and then having it go immediately super viral, right? So my blog had like, at the time, probably like 100 readers.
Oh, there was only 100 readers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, because it was like a bunch of people I knew from App Academy, the coding bootcamp I was at, as well as from my former poker life as a professional poker player, who kept following me after I was a nobody.
Yeah.
Like I just kind of wasn't a very public person at the time. And so they just wanted to know what was happening in Haseeb's life. And I was like, well, here's what's happening in Haseeb's life. And so I did not expect it to become like a big thing. And so when it went super viral and everybody at Airbnb knew not just how much I made, but like everybody had an opinion about me as a person. And like this, I remember the first week I got called in to go meet with the VP of engineering and the GC. And I thought I was going to get fired. I thought it was like, okay, well, game over. Like I just announced that I got this amazing offer and now I'm losing it. But they were chill about it. But everybody at Airbnb kind of looked at me like I had this stank on me.
Yeah.
And that I wasn't supposed to be there. That like I'd cheated the system or something. And I remember going into Slack, I could like search my name and read the conversations people were having about me, because like people just weren't thinking about the fact that like I'm here, like I'm fucking in Slack just like everybody else. So anyway, I had so much imposter syndrome, which like, of course I'm going to anyway, regardless of whether people know this about me. But now it's like, I have imposter syndrome and I think everyone's looking at me and judging me, which they actually were. And so I remember helping you to debug some random thing in like a,
airlock probably.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was, something. And I was actually being helpful. And I remember being like, oh wait, maybe I can do this. Maybe I actually am qualified to be here. So I actually felt really good in our first interaction, or like the first substantive time that I was helping you with something. And then you were probably like, oh, this fucking douchebag is.
Well, to be clear, I felt really good about our first interaction too, following my, debunking my overall first impression based on that Business Insider article. But yeah, I was actually curious, how did you feel with people kind of looking down or on you when you joined the company? And were you actively trying to change that image?
I mean, I was aware of it in the sense that, I kind of knew that everybody had read this thing and everyone was talking about it because it was front page news in tech circles. And that being said, and like I think for the first couple of weeks, like when I would look at people, I would wonder, is like, oh, is this a look of recognition, or is this just like, oh, hi, new person, or like it's like, oh, it's that guy. After a while, I stopped thinking about it because like naturally, people they stop thinking about it, or they just forget that you were the guy from the thing. But it was like I was mindful that this is the first impression for a lot of people, and so I have to prove myself not from what I say, but from what I do. And so, but I felt like I was going to do some of that anyway because I'm the new guy. I was older than most people who are coming in at my level. I didn't have a computer science background, didn't study technology, didn't go to any, I studied liberal arts at a state school. I was not the stereotypical Airbnb new hire. And so I really wanted to prove myself. So that accelerated my need to prove myself to other people.
And paint the picture. When you were writing that blog post, TC, total comp, there was no transparency around it because obviously now there is levels FYI, there's Glassdoor, everyone talks about their compensation.
Yeah, there's stuff like, what's it called, Whisper?
Yeah, Blind.
Blind. Yeah. There's stuff like Blind. Yeah, no, at the time that culture was not as well developed as it is today. Now, it's funny because I actually... Like I said, I had very few followers on my blog, so I wasn't like trying to make a big statement to Airbnb. I did not think anyone from Airbnb read my blog or would read my blog because like, why would they? They don't know me. So I I actually, when I was doing my job hunt and thinking about how I was going to negotiate, I read another blog post written by this guy. I forget his name, but he was like some guy in the rationalist world who wrote basically the same thing that I did. He wrote a post about his job hunt, the offers he got, how he negotiated, what his strategy was. And when I read that, it was extremely useful, just informative to just understand, oh, this is what's happening. And like on some level, why does it matter? Your job hunt's over. You have your job. Like, who cares? That like, is it like, what are you revealing that's going to hurt you at the point at which your job hunt's already over? So I thought like, oh, it's going to be helpful to the people who are searching for a job, who are maybe at App Academy, who are applying to jobs themselves after going through a coding bootcamp. But for me personally, I don't give up very much by just telling people what happened. I didn't appreciate how political it was going to be to say how much money I had made and the process of getting a job. Because I realized like so for people in the tech community, the reason why they care is that, oh, now I know, or people at Airbnb, now I know how much other people are making. So I actually had a few people DM me and say, thank you for posting that because I didn't know that I was being underpaid. Yeah. Now, a bunch of people obviously were like, oh, this guy's a douche. But it's funny. I remember this very vividly because I was looking up in Slack what people were saying. And there was one group where people were like, how could this person have gotten through the values interview? Because obviously this person is a douchebag and not aligned with the values of Airbnb. And then somebody else was like, well, how did this person, never mind the values interview, how did they get past the tech interview? Obviously this person, they just like graduated from coding bootcamp 2 minutes ago. They don't know anything. Like something's wrong with our interview process that this person even got in. And then one of the people who was like, like an L6 or something, who did my phone screen, piped in and said, I was the guy who did his phone screen. He actually did really well. And I read that, I was like, okay, at least somebody out there. Like, so not everybody thinks I'm an asshole. But from the perspective of like, okay, so why did this go viral on Business Insider or on TechCrunch? The reason why it went so viral there was not because like, oh, this guy is, talking about his salary. It was because look at how crazy Silicon Valley is. Look at this guy, this loser who has no skills,
just went
doesn't know anything, went to some coding bootcamp for like 2 months, and now he's getting all this money and all this Silicon Valley. It's so easy to fool these idiots. Look at this poker player, gambler, con artist managed to get, con his way into all these coding jobs. And like that was the angle that they ran with. And I understand why that's a sensational story. That's obviously a great story because the story that people wanted to hear was that there's a tech bubble. And it's like, oh, here's the proof of a tech bubble. If there wasn't a bubble, how could you explain this guy, this total idiot, getting 8 interviews just because he's like some, scrappy negotiator or whatever? And so that story, again, it's like kind of a broader political story. I was an example of a story they wanted to tell.
So I love the fact that you mentioned the Airbnb values interview and how people were like, how did he pass the Airbnb values?
Yeah.
In my preparation for this conversation, despite having known you for many, many years, I've decided, okay, let me actually read your blog.
Wow.
And so on your
I'm
blog,
so honored.
Yeah, of course, it's a privilege. But anyway, so on your blog, I thought it was really funny how you were like, I'm so excited to join the Airbnb family. I actually, I cracked up reading that. And to paint a picture for the listeners, you were very different from the traditional Airbnb family. I was encompassing a lot of that vibe and values, being very being very social. But you were like very much not just an outsider from your technical standpoint. In a lot of ways, I was an outsider too because I didn't study CS and I was self-taught. But you were like a cultural mismatch in some ways.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what were the expectations and reality when you did join, and how did you kind of go? How did that shape you?
So Airbnb was probably my first job at a real company. So before any of that stuff, before Airbnb, before all this, I was a professional poker player. And being a professional poker player is just such a different universe than like, normal gainful employment where you have like a boss and you have OKRs and you have performance reviews and all that. I had never had any of that before in my life. So I worked for a little while at App Academy, which was the coding bootcamp that I went to. They ended up hiring me, but it was like, small company with like, don't know, 12 people, and they were just kind of teaching people how to code. It was so not what I was prepared for going into Airbnb. And so, of course, I had a naive perspective about what that was going to be like. And I was like, oh, it's going to be so great. I'm going to work at this company and I'm going to rise up the ranks and I'm going to do all the things they want me to do. And Airbnb at the time, I think they were ranked like one of the best companies to work for.
Yeah. It was really hot to be at Airbnb.
That's right. It was a very, very competitive company to join. And
with a very hard technical interview process.
Very, very challenging technical interview. But like the perks, the fancy, the coconut water and the nuts and the snacks and the whatever, all the stuff that they give you. It was all very, very nice, very bougie, comfortable, pampered kind of corporate existence. And I just absolutely did not care for any of that. I think I didn't know how I would respond in that kind of environment. I think I thought it's like, well, I will play the game that is presented to me. But I did not, I don't know, constitutionally, I'm not like I'm not a team player. I'm much more of a go my own way, like lone wolfy, like I will get it done. If you ask me to do something, I will do it. I will do it well. But like, yeah, I don't want to kind of hang out and celebrate everyone's birthday every day. Like, I mean, it's just like literally we had like a 50-person team. Anytime anybody from the team had a birthday, we all got together and we all cut a cake, which meant like every single week, you're sitting down in the same room, cutting a cake and singing someone happy birthday. And
that was so fun. The cakes were so good.
I just detested that, because it's like, let's just work. Let's just do work. Let's get stuff done.
I'm surprised that you said you're not a team player because you lead a large team. You're so good at lifting people up. You're so good at mentoring people and you work with so many founders that you're helping. Like that is kind of like quintessential team player working with people. But I guess what you're saying is the whole social activity stuff, because it is true that anytime you guys do like an offsite or any sort of social thing, you would be there, but it's not like the thing that you're here for. You're here to win and to work to win, as opposed to work to, sing kumbaya and like be a family and to do all of those things.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely true even today. The way that I run Dragonfly is that like, we're not all best friends, or at least they're not best friends with me. I mean, we're best friends with each other. It's just not the way that I relate to people. Is like, okay, well, we work together, so let's be best friends. I am a great partner. I'm extremely reliable. I'm very communicative. I'm very transparent. But like, I'm not your chum. And I think that's okay for some people. For some people, it's like, well, it's really important to me to be like true friends with the people who I work with. In which case, I think those people are not going to love working with me because, like, yeah, I'm not going to be your best friend just because we work together. But I think for like going the distance and being, I resonate a lot with hearing the story about Dennis Rodman, who was on the Chicago Bulls. I don't know if you ever watched the documentary The Last Dance.
Mm-mm.
So it talks about the rise of Chicago Bulls, and one of the things that they mention is Dennis Rodman, who was kind of the third player behind Scottie Pippen and of course Michael Jordan, is that it's kind of a legendary team and legendary amount of teamwork they did in order to win. I think it was 3 championships that they won together, or 2 championships maybe it was. But what they reveal in the documentary is that they basically never talked, which is kind of bizarre because they worked together, they lived together, they traveled together, they like built this incredible partnership on the floor. They had enormous amounts of trust in each other, but basically outside of the floor, they never talked. And I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. Apparently Kobe Bryant was also the same way, is that he just like was relentless executor, but he wasn't friends with other people outside of the floor.
And for those legends, was it something that they personally did, or that was the vibe of the entire team? Where
No, it's like other people were friendly, some other people were chummy. They were, it's not. I mean, obviously that sets the tone, and people who really need that are probably not going to self-select into that kind of an organization. But No, I mean, I think it's just different strokes for different folks.
Yeah. Have you ever tried opting in into the Airbnb way, or, companies like
I mean, when
Airbnb?
I was at Airbnb, I tried, but
Uh-huh.
I just found it so excruciating
Okay.
that I just couldn't do it. Like, I mean, there were just so many like extracurriculars that people would do. And it's like, are we doing this to show each other that we're doing this, or do we actually want to be doing this? Where it's like, there's like, oh, today we're going to take the day off and we're going to go and beautify the city. And it's like, are we? Why are we doing that? Do we need to do that? Can we just do work? But like, I mean, this is part of why people think it's such a great place to work. Is because like, oh, that sounds great to a lot of people. To me, that's like, no, if I wanted to do that, I would do that myself. Like I have other things that I think are important that I could do instead.
Did that teach you that that's something that you definitely didn't want as far as,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. The birthdays thing absolutely scarred me for life. I at Dragonfly, like, because there's different people at Dragonfly. There's people
Yeah.
who are more touchy feely or more, social party people, whatever. I'm obviously not. We had a fight early on of whether we are going to like actually celebrate everyone's birthday. We have about 50 people at Dragonfly. That's enough that it was kind of like the team at Airbnb that like every single week it's somebody's birthday.
Hmm.
And so the question is, are we going to like send them a cake, do a thing? Like we all say every week on the weekly, it's blah, blah, blah's birthday today. Happy birthday, da, da, da. And I was like, no, we are absolutely not doing that. We can send a message in a birthdays channel about everyone's birthday and they can decide if they want to like get a gift, that we send the same gift to everybody every week. But like, we're not going to think thoughtfully about it. Like they all have their own lives. They can celebrate their birthdays with friends. We're not their friends. If we're their friends, they're doing something wrong.
Well, what if someone wanted to self-organize and send a birthday cake on behalf of that sub team to that person? Would that be appropriate or
I mean,
no?
it's fine.
That's
I'm
fine.
not going to
Okay.
stop.
Okay.
I'm not the Grinch. I'm not going to stop
Okay.
somebody from celebrating somebody else's birthday. I'm just saying, like, as an organization, what
Gotcha.
is the norm that we set around the way that we relate to each other?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is professionally.
Makes sense.
So I have very, very high standards for how responsive you are, how reliable you are, how communicative you are, how transparent you are. But if you don't want to talk about your personal life or you don't want to let people in as a friend, completely fine. Absolutely fine.
Makes sense. Oh, I want to come back to something that you said. I want to come back to your first memory of meeting me which was helping me debug something.
Yeah.
So you definitely helped me out a lot in those first couple of months because I, similarly to what you said, had like a huge imposter syndrome being on the team and I was
Yeah.
doing backend for the first time.
That's right.
And I remember the late nights when you would both help me with Ruby on Rails as well as
because you didn't
kinda-
know Ruby at the time.
yeah,
You
I
were
didn't
learning
know.
on the
I
job.
basically joined, a fraud team, which was very out of the park of anything that I was interested in or good at, I guess, by
Yeah.
that time, because I wanted to take on the challenge. I also started doing backend, which I've never done before. I was coming from the Android ecosystem.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, I want to take that challenge of trying to expand my programming horizons because I didn't study any of that stuff in school. And then 3 Ruby on Rails was in and of itself also a new language. So yeah, it was like pretty tough the first couple of months, also being like, why am I here? Why why did they hire me?
Yeah.
And you helped me out with the code and explaining concepts as well as just the mental game of it, of like, you're here for a reason. They're not idiots putting you, like, you literally did a whole internship where they could evaluate you. And it felt like, you were teaching me, mentoring me, and teaching has been a really big part of your life.
Yeah.
I am curious, where does that instinct to teach come from? Why do you like it so much?
Where does that instinct to teach come from? It's definitely true that I have I'm both very inclined to help people and to mentor and teach where I can. I also think I'm very good at it. That's probably come in part from me doing it as much as I have. Even when I was a poker player, I was also a teacher at the same time. I taught a lot of people how to play poker at a high level. And, obviously when I got into programming, I also then taught programming. So I think for me, like if you're asking about the genealogy of where that came from, it probably came from, honestly, my mother. Not because my mother is a great teacher, but actually more because my mother needed to be taught. So my mother, when we when my family emigrated to America, my dad moved here. He was, I think, 23. My mom was 22. My dad spoke English. He entered into a master's program at Texas A&M. My mom did not speak any English at all. She basically came to America completely bewildered by the culture, the norms, how everything worked. She'd never been out on her own or self-sufficient. And I grew up with a mom who still did not speak English. She didn't speak English until I was probably 6, 7 years old. And even then, very poorly, right? It was very difficult for her to navigate the world. And so as a child, because my dad would travel a lot, he had to go travel for work, we had to help her to navigate the world and to help explain things to her so that she would understand them. And so growing up, that was just something that I had to be able to do, because otherwise, like, my mom was not going to be able to survive. And I suspect that's where a lot of my proclivity for teaching and mentorship comes from. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm very good at explaining things in a simple way, is because I did it so much when I was a kid.
Until when did you have to do it for your parents or for your mom specifically?
Somehow I still do it. I think it sort of, like, her English started becoming much more self-sufficient maybe when I was like 12, 13, something like that. So quite a long time.
Got it. And I think you were, I think, leaving Metastable to launch a course and teach a course.
That's right.
So your desire to teach was as deep as like potentially doing a career transition or a career block of like.
It wasn't a transition. It was more like a project where I wanted to create this online course about learning cryptocurrencies and blockchains. I taught a course about that at the Bradfield School of Computer Science back in, must have been 2017, which was like this kind of elective school, paid school where computer scientists could go, or like programmers could go and learn some computer science concepts to keep themselves fresh. I taught a course on cryptocurrencies then, and then decided that I could take that material that I developed for that course and turn it into an online course that was more built out and more self-sufficient than anything that existed at that time. Because back in those days, like, there just wasn't a lot of educational material about crypto. Most people at that time were self-taught. I was self-taught. So I wanted to do that in between jobs. I thought it'd be a quick thing. I thought it'd take me like 3-4 months, get it out there, and then I would go get another job. But yeah, teaching has always been in my bones. It's just something that I both enjoy doing and that I feel is really socially important and valuable to do.
How are you getting your need for teaching fulfilled right now?
It's a good question. I mean, as a VC, I do mentor a lot of founders, and that's intrinsically teaching. I think there's also the people who I mentor within Dragonfly. And then I do a lot of public communication about crypto. I write a lot. I do podcasts, and all that stuff is, again, also encompasses teaching. One of the things that, so we do this podcast called The Chopping Block. And initially I was not the moderator for it, but I ended up becoming the moderator because I was just the best communicator. I mean, moderation requires a lot of different skills, but one of the most important things is just explaining what the story is that we're talking about.
Is that controversial to say? Are your colleagues on the podcast
I think
aware of the fact?
They would all agree with this.
Okay.
I think initially I was kind of like, okay, I don't want to be, kind of presumptuous kind of, whatever. Like, it's just kind of, I don't want to be a dick and say, yeah, I'm obviously the best at explaining things. I should be the moderator. And so I deferred to, like, oh, who wants to be the moderator? Oh, okay, we'll give it to you. And it was external feedback that said, Haseeb, you should be the moderator. Why are you not the moderator? So that, I think, in large part comes from me being able to very simply explain very complicated things that are happening in the crypto industry in a way that most people can understand.
How did you get so good about simple communication and just actually being both articulate and being able to explain complex concepts in simple words? Has it been intentional coming through writing, or did you put some, or was it natural?
I think it's, so in large part, it's just getting the 10,000 hours in. I've just been teaching for such a long time at different things, right? So whether it was, what I'm talking about of like sort of growing up with my mom and helping her to understand how to navigate American life, or whether it's, when I was a poker player teaching for so many years as I did. I created courses, I coached people individually, and then, going into programming. Like, one of the things that I've learned as the way that I can master a new domain is first study that domain and then teach in that domain. There's a hierarchy of learning that I forget what the name of it is, but it's I think very, very accurate, which is that the worst way to retain something is to just read it. Reading has very, very low retention. Second worst way is to hear it. Hearing it is better than reading it. Third is discussing it. So if you talk about it with somebody, that's going to make it much more likely to retain. And the most effective is to teach it to somebody else. Teaching is incredibly good at solidifying knowledge for yourself. And I've learned that very early age that a big part of the reason why I teach at different things, like why did I teach poker? Why did I teach programming? The answer was to make myself better at it. And actually, even insofar as I'm helping other people, I'm actually helping myself even more.
So if someone wants to learn something new and they're very short on time, how do they stretch themselves to teach someone? Like, what is your advice for that situation?
Find somebody you can teach it to. That somebody may be, the person who's right behind you, who's at the exact same level of proficiency as you are. Teach them what you just learned in the last 20 minutes. Like, any kind of teaching requires you to repackage what you've learned in a fluid way and transform it into a way that you can actually explain to somebody and it will land. And as you teach more and more, you develop an intuition for when people are just nodding or when they actually understand. And the easiest mistake to make, and this is the thing that bad teachers do the worst, is that they look for approval, not understanding. Right? So if you explain some concept to somebody and say, okay, here's blah, blah, blah. Do you get it? Nobody is going to say, no, I don't get it. So looking for the recognition, the understanding, and even challenging that understanding and say, oh, okay, explain back to me what I just told you. That kind of thing. I mean, I remember teachers in high school that are just, most teachers are terrible. My teachers in high school were absolutely awful. And it's just so obvious that they weren't even really interested in knowing how much of what they were teaching was getting retained. And as a teacher, that to me is like, why would you not be interested in whether you're succeeding at the task? Like, isn't that the point? Right? If you're going to do it, successfully do it. Otherwise, like, why bother? Why are we even here? So as a teacher, I'm always trying to find that understanding. And if you don't find that understanding, you fucked up. As the teacher, you fucked up. Now, it could be you fucked up because you explained it badly. It could be you fucked up because you explained it badly for this person. It's not that the explanation is bad, but that's not the right explanation that's going to land for this individual. Or it could just be that you were overestimating how interesting you are. And it's not that your explanation was bad. It's that they just weren't paying attention to you. And if they're not paying attention to you, you also failed. A big part of teaching well is to be interesting enough to be worth listening to.
Is there anything that you're trying to learn right now that you're about to start teaching people or are already teaching people?
I mean, in crypto, I'm continually learning things, and I, see the podcast as the place where I often teach people what I have learned about my understanding of what's going on at the vanguard or at current events within crypto. Outside, actually, so one thing I am doing is I'm trying to keep myself abreast of everything happening in the AI space. And the way that I do that is I have a little study group with some folks that I know. And every week we read a new paper and we present that paper to the rest of the group. And we try to explain what that paper is, what the main result was, what they accomplished, what their evidence was for that. And explaining a paper makes you so much better at understanding what's in it than just reading the paper. If you just read the paper, you will notice that your eyes, they glazed over everything in the paper, almost like running your hand over a wall. But that doesn't really mean that you understood it, right? The way that you'll know that you understood it is that you actually can explain it, answer questions, push back, and also identify what you don't understand about the paper. If somebody asks you like, oh, how did they do blah, blah, blah? You're like, I actually don't know how they did blah, blah, blah. Let me see. Go to that section of the paper and see if you can understand it. If you can't, you didn't understand the paper.
Yeah, I definitely have a bit of a limiting belief about myself and teaching because I just never inherently gravitated towards teaching. And as a result, I'm like, I just don't like teaching.
Yeah.
It is true that sometimes if I really care about something and if it's someone close to me, I'm very willing to explain and I guess to quote unquote teach.
Yeah.
And through content, for instance, sometimes you have to explain concepts, or when I was doing it on YouTube, I would inherently like learn about the thing that I'm talking about because I had to in a way explain it. But I would argue that the subjects weren't particularly like incredibly complex.
Yeah.
But at the time when we were doing the machine learning study group, I think it was about 2 years ago now, remember how we would go through a rotation where a person had to explain what was going on in the lecture that we studied.
Yep.
I always dreaded those days, understandably, because it is true you have to do so much more to explain it to others. And I always felt like, okay, I'm not doing that great of a job probably explaining and teaching because my own understanding of the subject was more surface level than it should have been. And that allowed me to like push myself to try to learn, find the time to spend time on the topics when I was presenting.
Yeah.
But I need to do something with this like limiting belief that teaching is just not my thing because it's very ingrained.
Well, but it also, it forces you to notice your own motivation to really understand, right? So again, like when you're just reading something, you're like running your hand over across a wall. Like that can be satisfying for something, right? Just to get a general sense of like, oh, here's what's on this wall. But like when you are forced to teach something, you're forced to confront whether or not you actually understand it. And if you don't actually understand it and you don't want to understand it, that's actually very important information for you to understand about yourself.
It's like, oh, actually, I don't care about that subject as much as I thought.
Exactly. Like I don't actually really want to deeply understand this.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it's important to like look at that and not be like, oh, well, I'm ashamed of myself and I'm a bad person for not wanting that. It's more knowledge that you should have about yourself, which is that, oh, I'm this is not important to me, or this is not that important to me. Whereas there are probably other things that if you realize you didn't understand them, you'd be like, well, shit, I really want to understand it then. So, you're obviously an entrepreneur, you're building in the dating market. If you realize that like, oh, there's something about dating economics I don't understand because I can't explain it to somebody else, that is really bad. I need to go fix that, right? But if you instead were like, oh, I don't understand something about the dating market, I don't care that I don't understand it, I'm not really motivated to go and figure out what I'm missing. You can treat that more as self-discovery than it is as a personal failing.
So speaking of self-discovery and learning, you went from poker to learning engineering, web development, you went to Airbnb.
Yep.
And actually in one of your blog posts, you were like, oh, I know I'm really excited about web development right now, but I know this is not going to be for life.
Yeah.
How did you know that? Like what was going on through your mind then? What did you think you would want to do eventually?
I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And I knew that becoming a developer was the most logical step toward eventually starting a company. Because if you can't build something, you have to have some other skill that is useful to bring to the table. And I didn't have any other skills. I was a professional poker player. So it's like, okay, I gotta have something valuable to bring to the table if I want to build a company. And so being able to build the thing is probably the skill that I'm going to have, because who knows what else I'd be good for. So that was my motivation coming into Airbnb. So I actually, my goal was not to rise the ranks at Airbnb. My goal was to learn how to build stuff, meet co-founders potentially, and kind of build some pedigree so that people would respect me and think that I was a competent, capable person.
So at which point did you feel like you were ready to leave? Because you left a year and 1 month
Basically, yeah.
into being at Airbnb.
Right on my vesting cliff is when I left. Yeah.
Was that the plan all along, or did you just feel like, okay, I'm ready to go?
It was basically the plan. I was thinking that maybe if I could get a promotion that I would stay longer if I thought there was a line of sight to a promotion before I left. But that was not in the cards.
Yeah, I remember how that whole thing went down.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, never mind then. I'm out.
And so when you left, you were like, okay, I'm going to go try my hand at entrepreneurship. And then you entered crypto. How did the whole entering crypto phase happen from Airbnb? Because it's quite
Yeah.
a leap. You know, you were working at a travel company, tech travel company
Yeah.
that cares about belonging and hosting and
Right.
giving people cakes every week for their
I
birthdays.
know.
Crypto's very different.
It's funny because it's actually not as much of a leap as you might think, because Airbnb, actually one of the early members of the fraud team at Airbnb was Brian Armstrong, who was the founder of Coinbase.
Wait, I knew Brian Armstrong works at Airbnb, but I didn't
Yeah.
know he was on the fraud
He was on
team.
the fraud team. He
Wow.
did the SIF science integration.
Are you serious?
Yeah, which I remember because I worked on some of his code.
Yeah. I worked on some of the SIF signs too.
Yeah.
After you left.
Yeah, that's right. There were some places in the code base where it literally says, like, if error, email barmstrong@airbnb.com. I remember like taking out that code. So I met Brian Armstrong as well as Soups and a lot of the folks at the early Coinbase team from Risk Salon, which is like when a lot of the anti-fraud
I was
teams.
the co-founder of the Risk
That's
Salon.
right. That's right.
Don't
That's a little
forget
plug
that.
for you. I do not forget that at all.
So I'm taking all the credit for your entrance to crypto.
That's right. It's all you.
That makes sense.
It was all you in the end.
Yeah. It was all me all along.
Yeah. That's right. But after I quit Airbnb, I was actually not sure if I wanted to go into machine learning or into crypto. I knew I wanted to build a company, but I didn't know in what domain I was going to build this company. And I was weighing the pros and cons of, do I want to go into AI? Do I want to go into crypto? And what ended up weighing me towards crypto, I was very bullish on both of them. I was passionate about both of them. But what weighed me towards crypto was that I became convinced that in AI really favored people who had traditional experience and credentials. So somebody who had a PhD, had been studying this for a long time. There's a lot of prior art, and of course, I was a autodidact, college liberal arts major. I was not the kind of person who's advancing the vanguard of AI. Whereas crypto, there were no experts in crypto back then. Crypto was a brand new domain. Everybody was self-taught. There was no textbooks. There was no classes. There was no anything. You just had to go in there and figure it out. And it was all being invented in real time. And to me, I just thought, like, one, this is really exciting. But two, this is exactly the kind of thing that I'm good at, is going into a space of total uncertainty. So I went into crypto, which was a space of total uncertainty. Nobody knew anything. There were no experts. There was no old guard. I mean, in retrospect, I can say that now. At the time, it felt like there was an old guard. It felt like, oh, there's people who've been here since 2013, 2012, 2011. There's the true OGs. I'm a brand new baby. I'm coming in here when everything's hot. The ICO bubble was on. Everybody was excited about crypto. And I was like, oh man, I'm just like a clout chaser. I felt like I was coming in late. And of course, people always feel like they're late, no matter how early they end up being to anything. I remember a story about Marc Andreessen when he arrived in Silicon Valley, I think in '99. And he said that he was worried that when he arrived in Silicon Valley in '99, that it was basically already all over. That the internet boom was pretty much done and there was nothing more for him to add. So people have always felt that way since the very beginning. But it turned out I think I made a good call about coming into crypto. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I would have done well in AI. I have no idea.
Yeah,
but
we'll see how it all plays
yeah.
out. Has Marc Andreessen influenced you in any way as a technologist or investor?
Has he influenced me? I mean, I certainly admire him for his prescience in obviously everything that he's done within just traditional tech investing, and then him being the
Have you
first
ever met
big.
him?
I have. I met him twice, I think. Yeah, he's. I don't know that he remembers or that it registers for him, but obviously he's a legend in the industry, being the founder of Netscape and the founder of A16Z, which kind of invented modern venture capital. But I'd say, yeah, he's somebody who I admire, although I wouldn't say I necessarily want to emulate him.
What about how he is in the world you don't want to emulate?
Well, there's nothing in particular about how he is in the world. I think it's more that the path that he took is very different from my path, right? It's like, I mean, I think this is true for almost everyone, is that I am just such a weird character. Like I've come from such a weird background, I've taken such a weird path to where I am, that I'm not really going to be able to look at anyone else's blueprint and say, great, if I just do what they did, I'm going to be successful. I don't think that's really true, right? Marc Andreessen was, the founder of Netscape. He was a very successful investor, built A16Z in a very different environment when, the venture capitalists that he was competing against were just total old school, very different, types of investors. I've listened to a lot of podcasts and stuff that he's talked about with respect to how he built A16Z and how he invested. But his formula is not a formula that would work today because it's a different world, a different environment.
I guess because you said that he's not someone that you want to emulate, or his path is not the path that you want to emulate.
Yeah.
That made me think that, maybe there is a path that you want to emulate. Is that true, or was that just a choice of words?
Yeah, maybe it's just choice of words. I think in general, I'm somebody who I don't look to others for an answer of how I should do what I do. I think there are lessons that I can incorporate, but those lessons are pretty bounded in that time, that place, that situation, that circumstance. But for the most part, I've always assumed that I'm going to need to reinvent a blueprint that's going to work for myself. And then I need to think for first principles how I'm going to win in this domain. So trying to build the next A16Z is not how you build the next A16Z. You build it by responding to the moment and the different environment in which you find yourself in compared to when A16Z first started.
Is emulating someone or not similar to having role models, or are those two things completely different?
They're related, but not exactly the same thing. I definitely wouldn't think of Marc Andreessen as a role model either. I think there are people who I really admire. Yeah, I really resist the language of role models, or of emulation generally as a concept. I think there are virtues that certain people embody that I respect and that may even inspire me to want to embody those virtues. But the idea of a role model is like, I want to be like Mike.
Yeah.
This person is like who I want to be, and I should find ways to get myself closer to who they are, and then maybe I will also be like them. I think that's usually a mistake. I think it's usually not correct.
Yeah, I agree with that. I never resonated with the concepts of role models either. It's just you look up to certain people because you admire their certain qualities, but the idea of a role model is almost like, oh wow, I love every single aspect of this person and I want to be them, which is very counter to finding your own path and being you and figuring out what that is. So I agree with that.
I mean, there are certain people for whom like they are genuinely really close to a certain type that resonates with this person, right? So if you're just like, look, my background is actually very similar to this person. They took this path. I'm going to take that path too. I don't think there's something wrong with that per se, but I think that kind of a strategy would be a total failure for someone like me, because there is nobody I can think of who has anywhere near as weird of a background as I do. Not like as weird, but weird in the same way.
So speaking of taking paths, you left Airbnb and decided to dabble and then really dive into crypto.
Yeah.
Started a company, joined Bology with Earn, and then joined Metastable as an investor. Where did that transition of like, hey, I'm gonna play quote unquote VC, because I think at that time you were kind of thinking about playing VC as a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Come from? Why did you decide to not give another shot to founding, but try this path instead? Like, was it Naval that really convinced you that that was it? Or was it completely your own independent first principles thinking?
Yeah. So it was Naval. At the time when I first met Naval, I was working on a startup, and we actually had an M&A offer from one of the big crypto companies. And I was asking Naval,
Not
I met
Coinbase.
him. Coinbase was one of the companies that was trying to acquire us. Yeah.
I guess it was Earn that was acquired by Coinbase.
Earn was acquired by Coinbase. I left Earn, started a startup.
Gotcha.
That startup had acquisition offers, one of which was from Coinbase. And so I initially met Naval to ask him for advice about how to navigate this potential M&A conversation. And he pitched me, oh, you don't want to join this company. I'm like, well, I kind of do. That's why I'm here. He's like, no. If you go get acquired by Coinbase, it's going to be super boring. You're going to be run by your compliance department, right? Like, Coinbase is run by lawyers. It's going to be super boring. You should become an investor. And I was like, become an investor? I don't know how to invest. I own index funds. Like I'm not an investor kind of person. I don't know anything about finance. He's like, it doesn't matter. You don't even know anything about finance. Like investing, like learning the mechanics of investing is actually easy. I can teach you the mechanics of investing. The hard part is judgment. Judgment is what's scarce, not investing knowledge. And so he ended up convincing me to become an investor, and that's how I ended up shelving my startup and going onto the investing side. But I thought at the time that I'm not going to permanently be an investor. I thought I'm going to be an investor for a while. I'm going to make some money, but obviously investing is kind of cringe. Like this is not the coolest thing you could be doing. The real thing, like the actual thing that matters, is like building companies. So obviously I'm going to do this, I'm going to hang out, and then I'm going to go build another company. And little did I know that this would be the place where I ended up building a company, was actually in venture.
Is investing still kind of cringe?
Yes, it is absolutely kind of cringe.
Why?
I mean, it's also really fucking interesting and super cool, but it's definitely kind of cringe.
What makes it cringe?
What makes it cringe? I mean, it is the quintessential genteel career, right? So it's like, I mean, we don't do this. I mean, this is part of like my whole kind of, the way that we run Dragonfly, but like VCs traditionally, like they take the summers off. They like don't respond to things on weekends. They like go on they take vacations all the time. It's like a kind of cushy job that you do after you've had like a long career and you're retired and you're just like a great elder statesman of the industry. And it's like, great, I'll be a VC and I'll give advice to people and that'll be my kind of fake job. That's how a lot of people think about VC. That's how a lot of VCs actually operate. And I do not operate that way. Like just constitutionally, I cannot do that. Like when I play to win. And if I'm not playing to win, I don't want to play.
But you can still be playing to win while, I guess, giving advice to people.
Yeah, you can give advice to people. I'm not arguing about giving advice to people. It's more just like, are you treating VC as like a part-time job / high status vacation? And a lot of people do.
But I feel like it's so hard to do that right now, given how competitive the deals in VC is. There's so many VCs.
Of course.
Like,
that's
how can you
why
have
so
that type
few
of job?
VCs are competitive. What do you think the rest of them are doing?
How can you make it monetarily as a VC if you don't treat it to win?
Well, a lot of people, okay, so important to understand maybe some of the economics of VC. So first and foremost, there's a lot of VC funds that are smaller funds. If you raise $50 million, right? $50 million, let's say you charge a 2% management fee. Okay, that's normally what is typical for most funds. So if you have $50 million, you're 2% management fee, that's $1 million a year that you're making. Now, it's $1 million a year, not just for your salary. It's $1 million a year for all the salaries that you're paying, as well as any other expenses that aren't covered by your fund expenses. So you hire, a CFO, hire somebody to deal with, whatever, investing, operations, whatever it is. Maybe that leaves you $500K a year that you're making, okay, as your take home. So 3-person fund. $50 million fund, that's not a big fund. That's like a small fund. There's a lot of people who can raise $50 million, hire 2 people, take $500K take home. That's a pretty good salary for anybody. And you're coasting. You don't have to be super competitive. You don't have to like win every single deal.
And then most likely you're co-investing in deals. You're not leading deals.
Yeah, you're not leading. Like at that size, you don't have to compete with everybody for allocation. And like you're getting some stuff, like you're getting boxed out of most of the hot deals. But of course, they're hot deals. That's why they're hot. Like, yeah, okay, Coastal's going to win it, or Sequoia's going to win it, or A16Z is going to win it. No skin off my nose. I'm not A16Z. And then it's even true for a lot of partners at these big firms. And you go to like, Menlo Ventures, right? It's like a good firm. You go to NEA, it's a good firm. There's a lot of partners at this firm that like, they take the summers off. They don't work weekends. They just, they're like, they've had a career, they've done stuff. And it's not that everybody has to do those things. Obviously, there's a value to having a relaxed job. If you're in a different phase of your career, you're not looking to kill yourself or to be super, super competitive. That's, of course, a very reasonable thing to want at that stage in your life. I'm not at that stage in my life. And I'm not that kind of an operator. I am very, very competitive in the things that I believe in and want to do well. So for me, the way that I operate, I don't play VC that way. The people at Dragonfly don't play VC that way. If they do, this is the wrong place for them. So that's the way that I've built this firm. And that's why, although VC is cringe, I don't think the way that we do VC is cringe. But from the outside, you don't really know the difference.
Do you remember the moments when you felt like, oh, wow, VC is actually it? I don't want to go back to starting a company.
I don't know if there was a moment, but I certainly changed my mind over time as I came to realize that startups are not very glamorous. Like,
But you were just saying how the way you like doing VC is not very glamorous either.
That's
So
true.
it's not
but
really about glamour.
yeah, no, I'm not saying that I want glamour, but it's more that like being a founder is such a thankless, brutal job, especially in crypto. It's even harder than I think it is in most other domains. And being an investor is actually unfailingly interesting. There's a lot of bullshit that goes into being an investor, but being an investor is actually the best way to try to understand the world and have a view about where the world is going and be proven right or wrong based on the investments that you choose. In a way, there's no purer form of expressing your views about the future than through investing. And I don't think I really appreciated that before I had some rounds under my belt as an investor. And then after I left Metastable and ended up building out Dragonfly, the thing that I realized most of all was that I really wanted to prove that I was good at it, because the time that I spent at Metastable wasn't long enough to prove anything.
How long was it at
It was
Metastable?
a little bit over a year that I was at Metastable.
And whom did you want to prove it to? To yourself? To Naval? To the world?
Not Naval. Naval actually believed in me, which was atypical. But
Atypical of Naval or atypical of people believing in you?
atypical people believing in me. I feel like the through line in my life has been that I believe in myself way more than other people believe in me. So, like, I mean, you can imagine that, being a poker player, I learned by myself. Nobody taught me, and like I kind of rose the ranks very quickly. And I always believed that I could. And who's going to believe that like some random kid is going to be able to become a top ranked professional poker player? And then I went from that to like, okay, now I'm going to go learn how to code. And naturally, people don't believe that you can just learn how to code. Like, no, you didn't study computer science. You didn't go to a top university. You didn't work an internship. You didn't do any of those things. Like, no, I just learned it.
Do you think that was kind of selective vision on your part, that you were more willing to see people who didn't believe in you than people who believed in you? Because I think if it's your story that, hey, you're always an underdog and I'm always...
Okay, I think this is your story that you think that I think this about myself.
No, I don't know, because I'm just thinking that when I decided to take a leap to learn how to code also, I mean, I was a little younger than you, sure.
Yeah.
But
you were in college.
Yeah, I was in college, but I was studying chemical engineering. Like, I'd still... Sure, you could make more of a path
you were
than
studying at Waterloo, surrounded by all these people who are applying to coding internships.
So I wasn't like a former poker player, but I think it was still at the time pretty unconventional. Right now, it's very conventional to, teach yourself how to code, go into tech with whichever degree you might have, which is amazing. But at the time, it wasn't as common.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of belief in myself that, hey, I can do this and I can prove to myself and to the world that I can get a job in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
But I also do feel there were definitely people who didn't believe that would be possible. But I very much remember there were a lot of people who very much believed in me. And I saw both of them.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I'm like, there must have been people who believed in you too. Like,
there were a few. I would say maybe like 2 or 3 people I can think of that believed that I would be able to pull that off. But I didn't fully believe it at the time that I came out to Silicon Valley, because I just didn't know. I didn't know how difficult it was. I just wasn't, I didn't know this world. I read about it. I'd seen TV shows about what Silicon Valley was like, but I never actually had any concrete experience with any of it. And so, when I first came to Silicon Valley, my goal was to get a job at Pivotal Labs.
wow.
Do you know what Pivotal Labs is?
Of course.
Yeah.
It was kind of like Atomic Labs. It was one of the venture studios.
Yeah. It was like a consultancy.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
like a tech consultancy.
It was definitely cool at the time, especially in Canada. Pivotal Labs.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
I mean, it's not like Google.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not like Google or Airbnb. It's like getting on, the varsity team.
Yeah.
It's like that was my goal. I was like, if I can get to Pivotal Labs, I've made it. And that, like, I wasn't even thinking about Google or Airbnb. So I was like, obviously, there's no fucking way. I'm not tracked, didn't go to a great university, I'm just learning how to program for the first time. Like, they would never hire somebody like me, And I just didn't know. I had no idea what was possible and what was not possible when I first came to Silicon Valley. So the idea that like people believed in me, I mean, people believed I was smart, but did people believe that I was going to be able to get a job at a top tech company? No. I can't think of a single person who thought that I was going to get a job at a top tech company when I came out to Silicon Valley.
And so with investing, you needed to prove to like non-believers and to yourself that you could be good at it.
Yeah. Well, not just that. Like I wanted to prove to myself that I was good at it. When I was at Metastable, I came into Metastable as a GP, but there were other GPs who had founded the fund. And I was very frustrated that they weren't listening to me. I was advocating for them to make decisions that they decided not to do. Those decisions turned out to be correct. Almost every single thing that I advocated turned out to have been a good call. But they just weren't willing to do it. And, I interpreted that as they don't trust me. Mm-hmm. They don't believe that I can do it. They don't believe that I'm right. They don't believe that my judgment is good. Then after I left Metastable, I started looking at some of these other firms that already existed within crypto. I talked to Paradigm, I talked to Polychain, and I wanted to come in as a partner. And these firms, either they weren't interested in having me join as a partner, or they were like, well, maybe you can work your way up to partner. Like, I don't know if you've really done that much. And I was like, fuck you guys. You guys don't believe that I can do this. Yeah. So, I mean, to be clear, I had very little proof that I was anything, like I wasn't a big name, didn't have a big brand, didn't have, all these years of investments underneath my belt. I was a relatively new entrant into crypto. I had just learned about it in the last year. So there were all sorts of reasons for them to have that reaction to me, which is, why would I believe that you can do this? What evidence do you have that you can do this? But I believed, like, of course I can do it. How could you not know that I'm fucking Haseeb? I'm the man. Of course I can do it. If I decide I'm going to do it, I'm going to fucking do it. And so that delta between what I believe about myself and what other people believe about me, I can't remember a time that wasn't there.
So were you intentionally looking for a position where you could really prove this to the world, to others, to yourself in a position of power? Or were you seriously considering joining other firms at a lower level position?
I was totally considering it. And I was open to it if I felt like there was really room for me to quickly prove myself. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I ended up deciding to partner up with the guys at Dragonfly.
What's the story? How did that happen?
So what happened was, so I knew the original team. So the original team was two guys, Bo and Alex, who originally ran Dragonfly. And I knew Bo and Alex because they were big investors into Metastable. Mm. And I first met them. I first met Alex through Naval because he had also worked with Naval at AngelList. So I got to know Alex. And him, when he knew that I left Metastable, him and Bo immediately tried to recruit me. And there were a number of firms that were interested in me. They were not the firms that I was interested in, but they were interested in me. And they wanted to bring me on as a partner. They were mostly pretty small. The thing that I came to appreciate about Dragonfly, initially I was like, yeah, no way, I'm not joining this firm. Because I was like, who are these guys? They're no names, They're,
don't you know who I am?
Yeah, exactly. I'm Haseeb. I'm fucking amazing. But they were very insistent on wanting me to join. But the thing that I realized more than anything, especially through my relationship with Bo, was that Bo, more than anybody I had met, absolutely trusted me. Almost immediately when Bo met me, he realized that you are extremely ambitious, you want to win, you are really, really good, and you will stop at nothing until you get there. And Bo's feeling was that I have the exact same ambition for what I want to build. And he immediately trusted me and told me, if you come join Dragonfly, I'm going to make you an equal partner.
How did he have that level of confidence? Did he work with you closely at Metastable?
No.
Does he just have really good spidey senses? I mean, you've worked with Bo for quite some time
Yeah.
now.
Bo, I think it's just all comes down to judgment. Bo has been a VC for a very, very long time. Very, very intuitive. He's very different than me. I'm a very analytical, very kind of, calculating person. Bo is the complete opposite. Bo is pure intuition, pure kind of social reading.
Amazing host.
He's an amazing host. He's one of the best communicators and kind of socially skilled people I have met in my entire life. And he is amazing at things that I suck at. Right? I'm the guy who like fucking hates birthdays. So Bo is the consummate opposite of that. But then the things that Bo's bad at, like he is not analytical, he's not rigorous, he's not calculating. I am extremely good at that. Right? I'm obviously technical, and I can do the underwriting and a lot of this other stuff. And so he immediately respected me for the things that I'm really good at. And I immediately respected him for the things that he's really good at. And that's one thing I think that makes for a really strong partnership, is not just that you respect each other, but that you are able to defer to each other in the domains in which each of you believe the other is excellent. So when it comes to fundraising, relationships, the kind of the cultivation of people, Bo is world class. And if we disagree, Bo's right. And when it comes to technical analysis and underwriting and this kind of stuff, when Bo and I disagree, he knows that I'm right and he defers to me. So that kind of trust and relationship, although the two of us are very different generations, we immediately had a really, really powerful and stable trust in each other. And that's, I think, the reason why I decided that, okay, I can work with this guy.
Having had such a great partnership with Bo, what has it taught you to look for when you're looking at teams and co-founders? And what about people who are actually very similar, but they decide to work together?
There's nothing wrong necessarily with being similar. Being similar is totally fine. I think it's just a different kind of working style that you need to have with somebody like that. Like, I think it's okay, to be clear, it's more common to have a team that's similar than different. When you are different, the important thing is that you actually trust each other in the domains in which you are each specialized. If you don't have that, if it's like, okay, this person's really good at this, but I don't actually trust them in that domain, or I'm going to try to override them in that domain, that's where being really different is fatal. So I think a lot of what comes down to seeing how teams work together is seeing their dynamic, seeing how they interact with each other, especially how they interact with each other in uncomfortable or difficult situations, which is why very often when I'm talking to a team and trying to size them up, I'll often try to put them in an uncomfortable situation. So, I will ask them, so let's say, you're a founder and your co-founder sitting over here. I'll say, what is this person's responsibilities? And, people very often will say, okay, well, let me hand him. No, I want you to explain what his responsibilities are. And then I want to see how he reacts to how you explain his responsibilities. And then I'll ask him, what are your responsibilities? Do you agree with that? Is there anything he left out? And just seeing how that interplay, how they react to that interplay. Another thing that I'll ask often is, how are you splitting the equity? And very often this is something that people don't like to talk about in front of each other, especially if it's unequal. If it's unequal, then I really want to hear about it. And so I'll ask, why are you splitting, how are you splitting the equity? And, very often the answer is 50-50, but sometimes the answer is not 50-50. And then I'll ask, okay, why are you splitting it equally? Do you not think that one of you has a bigger contribution? And I'll see how they react to that question. And, getting in to see how strong is this relationship of trust between these two people? What do each of them think that the other one is good at? And how confident are they in each other and each other's answers? That is a lot of what I'm looking for in a team.
How can someone cultivate trust? Like, let's say they're just naturally a person who has trust issues.
If you have trust issues, don't start a team. Like, that is not a good foundation. Like, maybe be a solo founder. But if you have trust issues, you are not going to be a good co-founder. So
you just generally believe that it's not possible to work through it, to really work on yourself or whatever your vice might be, to be able to fully trust people.
I think a startup is not the place for you to work out your trust issues.
But let's say you're not starting a company yet. You know that
Yeah.
this is something
Okay.
that you need
Okay.
to work on.
Fine. So, okay, I would need to know more. Trust issues is a very broad category. What kind of trust issue are you imagining?
Like, let's say you are very controlling. You need
Yeah.
to, you don't trust that other people will do a good job. And as a
Yeah.
result, you start micromanaging and you're like, oh, I don't trust this person to complete the thing that we agreed they're going to be doing. So I'm just going to take over and be, really
Yeah.
annoying about it.
So, okay. So, all right, I will answer that in a more abstract way, which is trying to actually diagnose what that means to say that I am a controlling person because I micromanage the people around me. It could be that that's actually correct. That's not a mistake. Because if you work with people who are unreliable and who you do need to micromanage in order to get the right outcome, then what you're describing is not a trust issue. What you're describing is a correct response to your environment.
Right.
Right. So if you work with people who are, let's say low-skilled labor, who are unreliable, who don't care about their jobs, then that's the behavior you're going to get. Right. If everybody's had the experience of working a job where the people don't want to be there. And if they don't want to be there, then they're not going to work very hard and they're going to need to be micromanaged. Right. In a job where people do want to be there and where people are really intrinsically motivated to do their jobs and do them well, that's when micromanaging is actually a mistake, right? People get micromanaged at McDonald's because if they don't, they're not going to work hard because it's a shitty job. Nobody wants to be at McDonald's. But you don't need to get micromanaged when you are, employee number one at a startup because you want to be there. You are there at the frontier building something really interesting. So if somebody has the same reaction to, dealing with somebody who doesn't want to be there as with somebody who does, then maybe the answer is that you are just miscalibrated about understanding the people around you. If that's the solution, is to just have a deeper understanding of what is motivating this person and what makes them effective, then great, problem solved. If the problem is your anxiety, is that this is a way for you to solve the fact that you are anxious if you are not imposing this on other people, then that's a different story. And I don't think showing you something about the world is going to solve that problem for you, right? So if your problem is one of anxiety, go see a fucking therapist, But if your problem is that I'm micromanaging people when I don't need to, then I can show you, aha, this is a mistake that you're making. And by learning the mistake, you can solve the problem.
That makes sense. I want to switch gears to meaning.
Okay.
And ask you where, now that you've proven to the world and people around you that you are indeed, I assume, a good investor. Did you prove to the world?
I think I'm on my way to proving that.
Okay, so you're on your way to prove that you're a great investor. It's going to take time, obviously, to return the funds. Is that where you draw meaning right now? And the reason why I'm asking about meaning is because especially in your early blog post, because you were a lot more personal in your early, I guess, younging days,
yes,
than you've gotten later with age or with time or with your career progressions.
What are you trying to say?
I'm not trying to say anything specific.
Okay.
You just got more or less personal,
all right.
less sharing of yourself online.
Sounds like an accusation.
Sure.
Okay.
You can take it as an accusation. Let it be that. So you talk a lot about meaning and, just kind of talking about will I mean something in the world?
Yeah.
What meaning did you seek for then, and how has it changed?
Then being in my early 20s?
Yeah.
It's hard to fully place myself back into what it felt like in my 20s, but I think the thing that I wanted more than anything is greatness. And greatness in something. I don't think it was that I wanted to accomplish some particular thing, but it's more that I wanted to prove that the endowment that I am born with, the body, the mind, the experiences, the capabilities, are capable of greatness, of being great at something. And I don't know what it is. And that people, I could tell people this, that I'm really smart and really capable and really hardworking. And I could do all these things. I'm just choosing not to. That people wouldn't believe me, that they wouldn't buy it, that I haven't proven it. And that the burden of proof is on me to show that that is possible. And that it in some way is my moral obligation that if I have talent, if I have capabilities, to actually cultivate them and to do something with it. And that if I don't do that, I have squandered it. I feel that really deeply, or at least felt that very deeply at the time when I was young. If I wasn't very talented, if I didn't think that about myself, then I don't think I would have that desire.
So given that that is what you thought, is that something you continued to believe in, that meaning for you personally is in achieving greatness at something?
I mean, yes, I think it's still true, although I don't know that I would put it in those words today. I feel like that's a very adolescent way of describing where meaning comes from. But I think there's a kernel of it that's still true, which is that I think now I resonate much more with thinking about it in terms of excellence and mastery and virtue. I don't think I think so much about greatness, because I think I realize that greatness is more about other people. Greatness is a relative term, whereas excellence and mastery is more of an internal thing. You're not really great if nobody agrees that you're great, but you can be excellent. You can master a domain, regardless of whether other people know that you have or whether other people acknowledge that you have. So I think as I've gotten older, that's more what resonates with me and what grounds my motivations. But there's always some desire to prove things to other people. I don't think that's ever going to go away from me. And it's not even real people. Very often it's imagined people. It's the people in your past. It's the eyes with which you see your old self. You want to prove to those eyes that no. I'm not this this boy that you once saw me as. I was not this, searching adolescent. I became someone. I did something with myself. I didn't waste what I was endowed with.
Do you think it's wrong for people to seek validation from other people, not from your past or future self, but really, really crave and desire that validation for someone to say that, hey, you're capable, you're smart, you're worthy?
No, I don't think that's wrong at all. I think it's mostly necessary for most people to have some degree of social validation. Like, we're social animals. It is extremely distressing to a human being, a Homo sapien, to know that other people in the tribe do not think that you are worthy. Like, it's just some part of our hindbrain is always tracking what the rest of the tribe thinks of us. And, huge part of our brain is dedicated just to understanding what other people think, what other human beings think about us. So I think this is pretty intrinsic to how humans are wired. I don't think this is like, oh, you're a bad person if you think about what other people think of you. I think that's simplistic and even just kind of puritanical to believe that that's wrong. Now, is it healthy? Is a different question. There's some amount of that that's always going to be there. And you just have to come to terms with it in the same way. Like, look, you're always going to be hungry. You will never abolish hunger from your body, but you should not be driven by hunger. You should not let hunger be the primary motivation that drives you through life. That we call that gluttony. That's how you become a morbidly obese person, if your primary motivation is hunger. In the same way, proving yourself to others or getting validation from other people, if that is your primary motivation, it becomes a disease, right? It becomes becomes like gluttony. And so I think there's some amount of it that you will have. You shouldn't pretend that you don't care what other people think. But it should not be the primary way in which you orient yourself to your own motivations.
And what shaped this belief for you? Was it
Which belief?
Like the belief that it's fine to have ego, some amount of ego is healthy, and you should self-examine whether that is the only primary driver that you have, or whether it's coming from an unhealthy place and you need to kind of work on that, examine that, fix that.
Yeah.
Is that something that you learned through your own journey? Was it shaped by your interest in Buddhism or interest in other maybe philosophies or Stoicism?
Yeah, I mean, it's an insight that flows through many different wisdom traditions. which is both self-acceptance and striving for virtue. So Stoicism is much more about virtue ethics. I think there's a sense in a lot of Stoicism that one should erase the focus on oneself or how one is perceived by others. I think this is a very naive interpretation of Stoicism. I think if you read Marcus Aurelius or some of the original Stoics, it's very clear that actually they do think it's important how you are perceived in your social standing, because a human being is a member of a society as well as an individual, and as well as any sort of interior life. You have the exterior life, and they're both part of your responsibility as a good citizen. I think that's correct. How you are perceived by others is not the only thing that matters. Sometimes the world is genuinely wrong. Sometimes the crowd is genuinely wrong. And the right thing to do is to go against the crowd and to give them the middle finger. But there are times when that goes too far. And too much of your sense of self is being derived from other people. And, too much of your, there are times when you can be too self-effacing or too much not considering the fact that you live in a society and your relationships with other people are deeply important, from the ways in which you might hurt them unnecessarily without getting anything out on the other side. So you can go too far in either direction. But I think the traditions of wisdom that I most resonate with are ones that are more realistic, right? So the realism is that, hey, it's not good to derive your entire sense of self from how others perceive you, but it's also not good to pretend that you don't. It's not good to totally put your sense of self from how other people perceive you, but it's also a mistake to have zero of it come from how other people perceive you.
And how do you derive meaning and purpose now?
How do I derive meaning and purpose now? How do I derive meaning and purpose now? It's a very difficult question to answer when you frame it that way. Because, it's kind of like asking, how do you keep your lungs breathing? And the answer is I don't know.
What gives you purpose and meaning now?
I mean,
It's the same
my answer is the same. Yeah, it's the same question, which is that I have purpose and meaning. And it's one of these things that you notice when your lungs stop working, but can you really explain what your lungs are doing to continue breathing? It's no, I'm just breathing. It's intrinsic to who I am and what I'm doing. In the same way, what gives me meaning and purpose? I'm every morning I do jumping jacks, and that's what gives me the meaning and purpose. It's no, everything about what I'm doing comprises the meaning and purpose.
Yeah, I wanted to say about the ego thing that you and I had this conversation very recently, where I feel like we live in a world right now where having any amount of ego is bad, and everyone needs to get rid of ego and be completely egoless, for the lack of a better word, and really try to tap into who they are at the core. But you are right that we are social creatures, so you kind of do realize who you are through the mirror of others.
Yep.
And sometimes you need to have conviction to prove others wrong, or to take your own path and give yourself a different grading that people around you give you. But I've come to, I guess, more of an acceptance and conclusion that, hey, this whole idea of examining your ego and trying to get rid of it at all costs is kind of the wrong idea, because to what you said, it's going just down one of the extremes, where the opposite extreme is being incredibly egotistical, and life is full of life needs to be balanced, and the truth is somewhere in the middle.
It's also about the question of, do you respect the society in which you find yourself? Because there are genuinely societies in which you should say, fuck you to everyone, right? There are people who are born into dysfunctional families, who are born into countries where they don't identify with the culture, but they identify with a different global culture that they might find themselves in contact with. And I'd say I wouldn't want to spurn somebody who does that. I think there are time and places when the right answer is to say, yeah, you live in a society, but your society sucks, and fuck that society. There are groups, not all human groups are great, obviously. But if you respect the society that you're in, then I think you should have some amount of deference to, as you put it, society is a mirror. It shows you some aspect of who you are. It's not necessarily, okay, well, everyone tells you that you're X. That doesn't mean that you're X. But they're showing you something about yourself by the way that they react and engage with you.
Kind of similar to meaning, I have this quote from one of your early blogs.
Oh, shit. Okay.
That says, wonder if the book I write is going to be worth anything. And that was your poker book that you were thinking of writing.
Yep.
Wonder how people will remember me when I die. Wonder why I am so desperate to mean something. Very deep and soul piercing, but
Yeah.
yes, that was the search of the adolescent.
Yes.
The adolescent search for meaning.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, how do you think about legacy these days? Like, is that as big of a deal as it was in your early 20s?
It's not.
It's not?
It's not. I think legacy, I mean, I don't know, different people feel differently, but I care a lot less about legacy now. I cared a lot when I was in my early 20s. I think when I was in my early 20s, after I wrote the book that I ended up writing, which was the book called The Philosophy of Poker, after that, I wanted to write another book. And I thought that book is going to be like my memoir. It's going to be like the book about my life, how I became who I am, and all this other
Haseeb
stuff.
Qureshi.
I am Haseeb. This is my life. Witness me. And now I'm like, God, I'd kill me if I ever write a fucking memoir. And it's ironic because I've done way more stuff now than I had at the time that I was, saying all this stuff. But I realize now how incredibly unimportant it is to me to be witnessed. Like, obviously, it's not, like, that doesn't mean that I want to lose contact with the world or that I don't want to be in conversation with the world. But to have people say, look at me and my legacy, look at all the great things that I did, wail for me when I'm gone. I want the people I care about to care about me when I'm gone. I don't really care if other people do. It just doesn't matter.
When did that change?
It's hard to pinpoint, but I think just as I've gotten older and more, I think honestly, more self-confident and more relaxed in who I am and in what I believe I can do. I think when you don't know whether or not you can accomplish anything in your life, you're desperate to want people to believe that you can. And that's, the desire to etch your name into the wall of history comes from that. Now I'm pretty confident that, it's not that I can do anything I want, but I'm pretty confident in my own abilities and my own determination to do things if I set my mind to them. And I don't feel the need to have to prove that to other people.
But I think you care about the legacy of Dragonfly, or do you completely separate the two?
I do to some extent. Like, I don't know that I care about the legacy of Dragonfly. I care about Dragonfly. The legacy of Dragonfly is like what happens after Dragonfly's gone. I don't know that I care about the legacy of Dragonfly. Like, I care about Dragonfly while it's here. I want it to be successful. I want it to be revered. I want it to be helpful to the people who work with it. I want everybody who works with Dragonfly to say, Dragonfly is fucking amazing. They're the best VC in this industry. These are the people I always want to be working with. When Dragonfly's gone, when crypto's over, when I'm dead, who gives a shit what people say? If anyone remembers Dragonfly, doesn't matter. There's so many businesses in the history of the world that nobody will ever speak of or dream of ever again. And that's okay. They don't need to.
Why do some people care so much about legacy? Is it completely like, is it being more on the barbell of ego?
It's definitely a kind of ego. Why do they care so much about legacy? Who knows? Maybe I'll care about legacy when I'm like 70 or something. That certainly seems to be when people start fixating on these kind of things.
Or maybe you'll start caring about legacy when you start having kids.
Maybe. That's very different, right? If legacy is literally your kids, I think it's just caring about your kids. Caring about legacy is like, I want people to remember that I was here and I want them to say my name after I'm dead, right? So there's like, I think, what is it? Like Andy Warhol? It said like, everybody dies twice. Mm-hmm. One time when your body dies, the second time, the last time someone says your name.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I care that much whether or not people say my name after I'm dead. I want people to, I want to have an impact while I'm alive. That's the thing that matters to me much, much more than the impact after I'm dead.
One of the questions that I had was about your writing and the fact that it was like really, really personal and
Mm,
how you said it for people to witness you and your experience and your emotions. And with
yeah,
time, it's gotten a lot less personal, at
yeah.
least on your blog. And I think on Twitter, you don't really share a lot of personal things outside of personal opinions on topics and
That's
ideas.
personal. Opinions are
Yeah,
personal.
sure, but it's not,
It's in the
these like
name.
really
Personal
intense
opinions.
emotional explorations like, hey guys,
Mm.
I know I haven't written here a lot, but
Yeah.
I've
Okay.
been
All right. All right. All right.
I've been agonizing about my future and whether I'm gonna mean something. Like it was very
That
deeply.
true. True. True.
And is it related to the fact that you just don't care about this like people witnessing you and legacy, or was the transition from this personal dialogue with your 100 people audience that then grew just kind of naturally evolved because you grew older?
It's a few things at the same time. So one of it is definitely that. It's just like me getting older, and like a lot of people kept a live journal when they were in their teenage years, and then eventually like, okay, I'm good. I don't need to do this anymore. Um, a part of it is also just that there's less going on, right? Like the emotional turmoil
Mm.
that one experiences and these um, liminal phases in one's life just are a lot more interesting to write about, and there's a lot more to process than there is for me to process right now. There's also just the stakes are higher, right? So if I'm writing about like, oh, I'm thinking about firing this person, I don't know what to do. Like, okay, everybody at my company reads my blog, they're gonna be like, oh, who's he thinking about firing? Um, so like, there's a lot of things like that um, obviously once your life circumstances change, like when you're just a rank and file engineer, who cares? It's like, oh, I'm worried about my career. Am I ever going to rise
Yeah,
the
yeah, but you
ranks?
had that transition a lot earlier before you started running Dragonfly.
Yeah, true, true, true. I mean, obviously, my post about my salary was very piercing. Obviously, that's why people got so upset about it. Thought I was a douche, apparently. But the other thing I will say is that the other part of it is that I think I just feel a lot more secure than I did at the time. Um, and a lot of it comes from just having a much stronger sense of self, that I don't feel the need for those 100 people or 1,000 people or 10,000 people to validate me, to see me, to like notice like, oh, wow, this person out there is struggling and going through these things. And, one feels an enormous amount of solidarity when you write something, put out in the world, and have other people witness it. Um, I think I really needed that at that time in my life. And although I still go through hard things, I don't think I need it.
On the point about being secure, it was really fun for me to read your tweet that went super viral the
Yeah.
other week about advice to 20-something-year-old men
Mm.
on, I guess, how to make the best out of your 20s, how to be a man in your 20s.
Yep.
Since when are you, giving advice about how to be a man?
I continually give advice, but it was like there was some viral
Yeah,
tweet
yeah.
about
It was like a
people giving advice
subtweet.
to your 20s. Yeah, it was like, oh, give men in their 30s give advice to men in your 20s. And I don't usually do that kind of stuff, but
What inspired you to give
I
advice
don't
then?
know. I just was imagining myself in my 20s.
So in
And
your 20s, the other reason why I bring it up, you write a lot about becoming a man you want to be and about
yeah.
manhood. So yeah, who has shaped your idea of what does it mean to be a man? What when did you come into your manhood? When did you feel like a man? And tell me more about this advice that you have for 20-year-olds and maybe
Uh,
30-year-olds too.
when did I become a man?
I don't know.
I,
Maybe
I
you're still
don't know.
becoming. I'm not sure.
Damn. Um, that's tough. Growing up, I felt like I didn't really have a very coherent picture of the kind of man I wanted to be. I saw the kind of man my dad was. I saw the kind of man that, I saw in the world around me as I was growing up. And none of them seemed like the kind of person I wanted to be. And that for me was very, um, maybe just confusing about how the goals that I had of what I wanted to do in the world aligned with my sense of manhood. I think a lot of the, things like being very focused on school is not very manly. I was very interested when I was going to school. I was studying philosophy, and also something not very manly. Ended up becoming a poker player, which I guess is kind of masculine, but like not like it's not like I'm building brick and mortar things with my hands. And the sense, because I think also poker was it's such an isolating game, like as a profession, because although you're playing with other people at a poker table, you're really on your own in the sense that you're the only one in your corner. Nobody else is rooting for you. Everybody else wants you to lose. It's not a team sport. And so you really are you against the world. And I think manhood comes in very large part from responsibility. It comes from being able to shoulder things for other people and stepping up to the plate. And I think it's actually very hard to cultivate that from something that is so individualistic, like poker. My ideas of manhood, where do they come from? They came from all the different images and people and places that I've been. But the thing that I realized that resonates for me most with masculinity is strength and responsibility. So if you are strong and you can be responsible for other people, that's what makes you a man.
I feel like in the modern world, and it's not that I feel like, it's kind of facts, people take on less or are willing to take on less and less responsibility. And there is more and more desire to have your life be incredibly frictionless.
Right.
And that comes with apps that we use, with services that we use, with interactions that we have with other people. Because of how the world is shaped in terms of consumption, we expect very little friction in our day-to-day interactions with people.
Yeah.
And as a result, the common complaint for men is that men are not able to take responsibility. Coming from the world where I was building a company in dating, that is a huge complaint for women, that they don't feel like they're, in traditional terms, safe, protected by a man who can make decisions and take responsibility for her, for others, for decisions in his life, for even like finding his own path and purpose. Do you feel that? Do you see that at all through your own like evolution through life? Just men that you interact with, what's happening in society broadly? Is that what inspired you to write the post with advice to 20-year-old men?
That is particularly what inspired me, but I'm very aware that like society on the whole has become more feminized over the last 30 years. And many people have observed this, is that just, beauty standards for men have become more feminized. Like there's less signals of kind of uniquely masculine traits. Like the kind of people who you see as movie stars are, if you just look 30, 40 years ago, they had more traditionally masculine traits and more traditional masculine builds. And it's obviously true that you see more and more institutions becoming more feminized, right? And so this is one thing that Tyler Cowen has written about very convincingly, is that academia in particular has become much more feminized, where it used to be that, maybe there's gender parity between male and female teachers. Now it's majority of people who work in academia are female. And for boys that are in schooling, they are basically taught to repress their masculine instincts, which are mostly about, being disruptive, energetic, physical type stuff, and to instead conform to what most of the girls are doing, which is more verbal, social, and quiet and studious. And all of this stuff results in a society where we see increasingly disparate outcomes earlier on in life between men and women, where actually women are doing better in school, in health, in getting jobs, in kind of being functional members of society than men are. And this is in large part because society has started to shift to become more women friendly in large part rationally, welcoming more women entering the workforce and entering into more and more parts of society. But that has also led to a world that is less accepting of masculinity, or not accepting, but sort of more encouraging of masculinity and masculine traits. So I think in this world, especially in the advent of things like Me Too and wokeness and all this other stuff, a lot of men and boys increasingly feel like masculinity is somehow something to be hidden, or it's somehow something that's not a moral failing, but maybe just kind of passé, maybe not the dominant way that people ought to be behaving in today's society in order to be successful, in order to be liked, in order to be respected, in order to be accepted. And as a result, I think that leads to a lot of confusion among young men about how they're supposed to behave, what is supposed to be modeled for them. Are they just supposed to remove the thing about them that makes them men and to try to conform more to this kind of androgynous, homogenized view of what society is supposed to be rewarding now? I think this is obviously doing a disservice to men. And that's, there's a lot of movement now of trying to come up with positive messages and role models for men to try to more pro-socially masculinize young men. I resonate with that story. I think it's right. I see it playing out the same way that many other commentators have. And that was part of the spirit under which I wrote that tweet, is what are the messages that when I was young and I felt like I didn't have a clear picture of what kind of a man I wanted to be that was actually going to be rewarded with and resonate in the society. What would have been most useful for me to hear when I was 21?
So given that the society is already shaped in a way where it's more, as you said, women friendly, and as a result it's, and not just women friendly, but it almost undermines the traits of natural masculinity. What should the society, what should we do as a society to change that outside of positive messages? Because positive messages is one, but it requires a certain amount of conviction that, hey, I'm just going to go against the grain and I'm going to follow this more masculine path to find my purpose and to be responsible for people, be more traditionally like a man, but it's not being welcome or invited by the broader society.
I don't know. I do not consider myself to be a very good social planner. I think I have a lot more clarity about what to do as an individual than I have on how to reorganize society. I don't think anybody really knows what is the right way to reorganize society around trends that seem to be happening pretty much everywhere in the world. As an individual, as a young man or as somebody who has the ability to influence young men, I have a lot more clarity about, okay, what can I do? What can you do? What can different people do? The individual is the locus of impact. As a society, I think a lot of these things, you can't really put the genie back in the bottle, right? Like the degree to which institutions have changed, the degree to which the nuclear family has changed, the degree to which dating has changed, they're not going to unchange. You can't really rewind history in that way. Things like family size or divorce rates or, all these different things, right? Video games, porn. We are not going to undo these. These are now part of the furniture of society. So you can rearrange yourself on the furniture. You can decide what furniture to spend more time on and less time on, but you can't really delete any of the furniture. It's just there.
So being a man means taking responsibility and being strong, right? From your blog in the early days...
Do I contradict myself?
Yeah, no.
Oh.
Actually not. My choice is not between happiness and unhappiness, but between strength and weakness. To value strength above all else, body, mind, spirit, this is the path to being a man. So very much resonating
Okay, good.
to what you're saying now.
Good to hear I'm not
very
full of shit.
Consistent, yes. But does this specific excerpt resonate with you still?
It does. That's a really good line. Yeah. I completely agree with that. And I recognize that very much as being the way that I felt when I was in my early 20s, which is that I knew that I was not strong. I knew that I was not somebody that I knew I was not somebody who I respected, and I was not somebody who was strong enough to be able to take care of other people. And I think now I am, and that's part of the reason why I feel much more secure in myself as a man. But you have to, when you're that young, you don't really know, right? I mean, I knew enough to know that I wasn't, but I think most people, like, you can't really know because, very few people at 21 actually have enough responsibility to be able to answer that question in reality.
Has your definition of strength changed over the years?
No.
No? Same thing?
Same thing.
Do you then think that for men it's strength and responsibility, but for women it's happiness? Or, I mean, I know you can also say that you're not qualified to give your opinions on behalf
I'm
of
not an expert
women.
on femininity, so
Yeah.
I don't think it's my place to opine.
What is your relationship to masculinity now?
What is my relationship to masculinity now? That's a very interesting way to phrase that question. What is my relationship to masculinity now? It's something that when you're young, you fret about much more because you don't know if you have earned your comfort with yourself. I feel now much more so than I did at that time that I have earned my comfort with myself. And the only person that you can get that comfort from is you. So do you know what your own, or maybe you don't know what your own standards are. Actually, I think probably at 21, you have no idea what would make you satisfied, that you are yourself the kind of man you want to be. It's one of these things like when you see it. I think I am now somebody who I'm very secure in who I am, in my masculinity, and as I mentioned, in my sense of self. I don't feel like I have anything to prove to anyone. I have some things I want to prove, but nothing that I need to prove.
So if I'm, say, a man and I'm 22 or 23 and I have this restless sense of trying to figure out my purpose in life and what kind of man I want to be, what are the things that I should be doing?
First thing you have to define what that means for yourself.
How do you define that for yourself? Because, right now there is also a bunch of outsourcing of thinking generally. Now it's going to be even more prevalent with AI.
Yeah.
How does one learn the skill of thinking for themselves?
I don't think I think it's actually very rare to outsource your thinking. I think most people who are reading, listening to podcasts, watching, their favorite person on YouTube or their, whatever it is,
listening
means they're not
to
thinking
the
for
Luba show.
themselves. What's that?
Or listening to the Luba show,
Or listening to the Luba show. I don't think that means they're not thinking for themselves. Like other people who you believe are wise and have something useful to tell you should be an input into your understanding and the way that you think. So if you are just completely accepting the views and perspectives from somebody and just importing them directly, kind of like a raw file format directly into your brain and into your worldview, that means you're not thinking for yourself. But I think that's actually pretty rare. I think most people do think for themselves, although, I'm very happy to criticize other people. So I think a lot of it, the answer is like, look, you should listen to other people. You should observe many different men, many different women, many different people. See what you admire, what you detest, what you find to be phony, what you find to be authentic, and try to think about what it would look like to model all of the traits in yourself. They won't necessarily look the same as they will for somebody else, but like to really seriously engage with that. Like, what would the version of Luba do? What would she be if she were the person I most admire? Becoming that yourself, becoming the person that you most admire, is what it means to consummate your masculinity, in my mind, or femininity.
Yeah. On that note, of it kind of links to your point in the earlier days about the pursuit of greatness. In some ways, it's like the pursuit of the great version of yourself that you want to become.
Yeah.
How much of life should be full of enjoyment versus enjoyment being secondary to that pursuit of greatness?
I think enjoyment, well, how much should life be about enjoyment versus the pursuit of greatness? I don't think there's a single answer to that.
Well, again, in your earlier writing, it was all about, hey, enjoyment is very second order. I'm not really pursuing enjoyment here. I just want to be the best version of myself and I want to be great. Has that changed?
It hasn't changed for me. Is it the right answer for everybody? I don't think enjoyment versus greatness is the right dichotomy.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way that I would frame it is flourishing. So the Greeks called it, not just progress. So the Greeks called it eudaimonia, which kind of literally translates to flourishing, like a plant flourishing. And I think flourishing doesn't necessarily mean, oh, okay, my bank account is flourishing, or like, oh, my skill set is flourishing. It means flourishing in some fuller, deeper sense that, again, you know it when you see it. It may involve a feeling of happiness, but it's not the same thing as just, oh, you should be happy. Because the person who is happy is not necessarily the version of themselves that is most flourishing, right? There's a version of me that's on a beach in, Hawaii, just getting fat and eating Cheetos and watching VR. And like, maybe that version is really happy. Like maybe you say, oh, you're not really happy. You're just, in this stupor of, pleasure and whatever. It's like, no. I'm really, really happy. I am completely loving my life and everything about it, and I don't want anything else. You would reject that. You would say, well, you can tell me that you're happy, but I don't. That's not happiness. That's something else. And I don't think that's right. I don't think that it's true that it's not happiness, but it's not flourishing. And flourishing, in a way, it's like, how do you know if a plant is flourishing? It's not just that, okay, the plant has a lot of water. You can water the hell out of the plant. It's not just, oh, the plant has big, it's really big. Okay, that doesn't mean that the plant is flourishing either. The plant is flourishing when it is at its greatest degree of complexity, when it becomes the full version of the plant, right? And that flourishing doesn't necessarily mean that like it got a ton of water. It doesn't mean that it did all the things. It meant that it became the full flower, right? Or the full, whatever it is, full plant. That's the way I think about it for a human being, is that it may be a happy process to flourish. It may not be a happy process to flourish, but becoming the fullest flower that you can be, that's what flourishing means.
Yeah, I think in simple terms, it's realizing your potential.
It can be.
Or like realizing yourself to the version that you want to become.
Yeah, because it's always your potential in what? Yeah. Because everybody's pluripotent, right? I could go and become a fucking pole vaulter. Probably not well, but I could do it. Maybe if I spent my entire life just doing pole vaulting, I'd be like pretty good at pole vaulting, Or maybe that's a joke of an example. Let's say instead, something else. I could be a writer. I could be a, whatever. Who knows? I could be an electrical engineer. I could be I could go into government, right? These are all forms of excelling at something, but they don't equally. They don't equally capture what I mean by flourishing.
Why is society so obsessed with the pursuit of happiness? Why isn't it rebranded into flourishing?
Well, because happiness feels good. Why would it? I think people, like, happiness is obviously more compelling if you're not told to believe otherwise. Like, you would have to be told that it's better to be a really impressive person than to just, jerk off all day and eat Cheetos. Because most people jerk off all day and eat Cheetos. They don't try to become great people. So, the real question is like, how does one get so warped that one does not want to just wirehead yourself and constantly be, awash in dopamine by consuming all of the wonders of modern, onanism? And the answer is that you have to be told to want that. somebody has to tell you that you should want to be a great person. You should want to be good to other people. You should want to be reliable for other people such that the world is better off if you haven't been here. You have to be told that. You have to be given messages. You have to be shown that this is honorable and that this is great. And if you're not shown that, of course you're not going to believe it. You're going to, if you grow up in a town or in a society or in a community or in a neighborhood where what you're shown is just pure greed or pure criminality or pure, like, look, these are the people who get ahead. Go join the mafia, go kill some people and become the most powerful person. That's the best thing to be. You'll do that too.
This makes me think of religion and how a lot of religious teachings kind of, teach you to be virtuous, to be a great person, to be good to your neighbors, to be good to your family. Is that what we should come back to reinstill those values into society? And now that we have even more things to...
I mean, I said before, I'm not a social planner, so like, should we go back to religion? I mean, we can't. There is no going back to religion unless you want to start another crusade. Like, people are going to believe what they believe. So again, as an individual, I think I can give a message that pushes back against a void that's in the zeitgeist, but I can't make that void go away.
Okay, so part of the thing of becoming a man is being strong mentally and achieving the things that you would want the best version of yourself to achieve, which comes to discipline. You're really, really disciplined. And you have systems that allow you to be more disciplined. Yeah, what are your guiding principles of discipline these days? Has it evolved at all since when you were trying to cultivate discipline in yourself in the younger age?
Yeah.
What's your advice to someone who wants to become disciplined?
Yeah, I was much more draconian when I was in my early 20s. So when I was in my early 20s, I fasted twice a week. I never drank anything besides water. I still do that, although I sometimes drink tea and things like that.
Oh,
now.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I mean, when
it's a huge change.
No, I don't drink tea by myself. I drink tea when people offer it to me. You were also very, very draconian on your diets, paleo. Yes.
Now you're a little more chill.
I'm a little more chill now, but at the time I was extremely, never bread, never sugar, never potatoes. All sorts of things like this. And I've let up on a lot of these things because I think I've realized, it's kind of like many of these things were sort of talismans that allowed me to know that I was cultivating discipline in myself. And a lot of it was because I also knew that I was a very undisciplined person. So, when I was growing up, like when I was in high school, I stayed up late every single night. I slept like 3-4 hours. I'd play computer games until late in the night, never do my homework. I would do it the morning before. I'd sleep through class. Like, I was just a shitty, smart kid. And I kind of made it through the skin of my teeth just because of the fact that I had enough natural intelligence to be able to skate by. But I was completely undisciplined. And when I became a poker player, it became even worse because poker, you can play poker late hours of the night. You're surrounded by people who are super unhealthy. You're very isolated because, you're not going to an office. You don't have colleagues. It's kind of like it's a very chaotic lifestyle. And so I knew that I was not a disciplined person when I started to implement a lot of these rules for myself. And I stuck to them, and sticking to them for me was incredibly important because it showed me that I was capable of being that kind of a disciplined person. And I think that more than anything was probably the thing that mattered, was proving to myself that, okay, I can, if I impose this level of discipline on myself, I can do it. And if I can do that, then if I decide to do something else, I'll be able to do that too. It's almost like building up these contracts with yourself and making sure that you don't break them. There's a rule that I really cultivated in myself, is that if I made an agreement with myself, I would not break it. And that's the only way that you can really develop trust in someone.
I think that's the only way you can truly develop self-respect as well.
That's right. That's right.
So how has that changed now? So you're a little more loose. Is it because you've proven to yourself that if necessary, you can do it? And how do you, or is it just now part of your nature where you started off with being incredibly undisciplined and now with so much discipline throughout years of your life, or I guess almost a couple of decades of your life now,
Yeah.
it's now part of your personality that, hey, you're actually a very disciplined person. So you don't have to think about it too hard.
It's a good framing. I think it's a little bit of both. I think probably the biggest thing is that I've realized that there is, in the beginning of a relationship with somebody, a small piece of information will lead to a big update in who this person is, right? So if you meet a new friend and they stood you up the first time you were going to meet, it's like, okay, wow, this person is like a flaky son of a bitch. Like, first meeting, you're going to stand me up? Like, that tells me, like, I know that you're at least 50% unreliable, if you stand me up on the very first meeting. But if it's the 8th meeting, the 9th meeting, the 10th meeting, this person stands you up, it's like, oh, probably something came up, and oh, their dog got hurt, or I don't know, who knows. And so the longer that you know somebody and you feel that trust in that contract with that person, the more you realize, like, oh, this doesn't actually mean that much about this person, that they failed to fulfill this contract. And I think that's very true in terms of my relationship with myself, is that as I saw more and more of myself being able to hold on to that discipline, when you start to softly let go of certain parts of that discipline, you see the rest of it doesn't unravel. It's like, oh, I can still rely on myself, even if I sometimes, whatever, drink tea or eat potatoes or whatever the hell it is. And so that, I think that's also where a lot of that security comes from, is that if you'd asked me in my early 20s, I think I really would have told you, if I don't do all of this, I don't know if I'll do any of it.
So for someone who wants to become very disciplined, is it about making those contracts to yourself and proving to yourself that you can indeed keep them?
Yeah. I mean, that's the rule, is never break a contract for yourself. And if you don't think you can keep it, don't make the contract.
What if you, took on a contract and then midway through the contract, you realized that contract wasn't that important to you?
Then have that conversation with yourself. Like, again, as long as you are not violating your expectations for yourself, that's ultimately what it comes down to. So, if you text your friend and you're like, hey, I'm not really hungry. Are you sure you want to still go to this dinner? It's like, oh, no, it's fine. It's like, okay, didn't violate the contract. It's you not showing up that is the real violation of the contract.
I think you were going to a Vipassana in a couple of weeks.
That's right.
And it's been...
I think it's next week.
Next week.
No, sorry, 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah, in a couple of weeks. And it's been like a yearly thing that you do that allows you to set vision for the next year, to solidify the lessons that you've learned this year. Tell me more about that practice, and why did you pick that as the way to reflect on your life?
I don't know that I picked it so much as
it picked you.
It picked me. I mean, that's a little trite, but I'll take that. So a silent meditation retreat is really like nothing else that you can do. It's intensely isolating, maddening, lonely, and it forces you to really confront anything that you have not stared at face on in the corridors of your mind. Every single painting that you're hanging in your head, every single door that you haven't opened in a few years, you will explore every nook and cranny of your mind if you are on a silent meditation retreat. And it is intensely clarifying for questions that you have not given yourself the space to ponder or the time to ponder. A lot of it is like, okay, things going on in your life, relationships, people you've wronged, people you haven't spent enough time with, things that you're not prioritizing. There's also just things like your death, your childhood, your education, your family, like what it is that you are on this earth to do. A lot of these questions that you just don't sit around every day confronting, but you will confront if you have enough time with yourself. So that's why I do it. I find it clarifying in a way that is almost impossible to achieve any other way.
And is that the primary way you're setting goals, vision for yourself every year, or do you have any other methodologies to do so?
I mean, professionally, we set goals on a more regular cadence. In terms of personally, I do sometimes try to take stock and set goals, but almost always at the end of the year, oftentimes after a meditation retreat, I will set these kind of larger, more inclusive personal goals for myself.
How many days do you recommend going to Vipassana for to really reap those benefits?
I'd say at least 4 days. If it's shorter than 4 days, it's kind of not hopeless feeling enough. You kind of need to go through the valley of darkness. And everybody says that usually like on the third day is when you go a little crazy. And that's like, don't, you got to give yourself that gift of going a little crazy.
And why did you pick, well, I already asked you, why did you pick Vipassana? But, there is psychedelics you can take. There is
Yes,
like
there are.
therapy you can do.
Yeah, it's not the same thing. It's absolutely not the same thing. You've never done a meditation retreat?
No, I mean, I was planning to do it
Yeah.
this fall.
If you do it, you will understand what I'm talking about. It's not like taking psychedelics. It's not like getting therapy. It is the most basic and naked confrontation with your own self. It's just you and yourself for however many days.
So say you've discovered those lessons, you have done the recounting of how the year has gone, what you want to change in the next year. Do you do any sort of intermediate year, like half a year, quarterly reviews of how I'm actually doing on the thing that I said to myself I care about? Or is it just a reflection at the end of the year?
Mostly just reflection at the end of the year. I do keep track of my goals. I have them written down, and I will occasionally revisit them just to think about how I'm doing. But
How do you write them down? Is it just like written in a notebook, in a doc?
It's in a doc.
How often do you look at them?
Maybe like a few times a year.
Okay.
Not often.
Is it like on your calendar?
No.
You just randomly remember?
No, and I have a group of friends that we share with each other our year-end goals at the end of every year. And so every year we have like a long email thread that we've had over the years that we'll share with each other. Here's my goals for the year.
Wow, that's very nice.
Yeah.
Do you guys keep each other accountable?
It's not that we keep each other accountable throughout the year, but that we do reflect at the end of the next year. Did we accomplish the goals? How do we feel about how we did on the goals that we set?
Have there been any times where you created a story for why you have not achieved a goal so that you can look good in front of your friends?
No.
No.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty honest, but I think also, like, it's very common that you'll set a goal and not accomplish it. Sometimes it's because it was the wrong goal. Sometimes it's because the goal was too ambitious. Sometimes it's because you just didn't have the space to be able to prioritize it. So I think if you're hitting 100% of your goals, you're not setting goals aggressively enough.
So given, we're going into the end of the year, I think this episode will come out at the beginning of the year, which is still very much time to reflect on how you want the year to go.
Yeah.
Has your process of how you set goals in terms of, are they super metrics driven? Are they incredibly specific? Are they kind of broad? Has that changed over the years, or are you following more or less the same like goal setting framework?
I think the framework is pretty simple. I mean, I try to make sure that my goals are all measurable and very, very clear, so I'll know whether or not I accomplished it. It's not like get better at blah blah blah. Like okay, well I accomplished that in 5 minutes because I got a little bit better. So you want to make sure that your goals are things that are clear, and you will know for certain, did I hit the goal or did I not hit the goal, and you'll know the exact day that you do.
So what's an example of a very clear goal that is specific enough and also ambitious enough, or like the way you track it allows you to see that it was ambitious enough?
Yeah. So, I mean, some of the goals that I had set, I mean, there's either outcome goals or process goals, right? An outcome goal is I want to achieve XYZ. So, I want to raise my next fund by blah, blah, blah date. I want to raise at least this amount of money. A process goal is that I want to, every week do a, AI paper review at least, 40 weeks out of the year, right? So that's a process goal. It's that, okay, I don't know that I'll achieve anything by doing that, but I will do this process and hopefully a good outcome results from engaging in that process. So I set goals for myself that are of both kinds. You want to make sure that the goal is realistic. So like give yourself enough flex that, if you miss 1 week, your goal is not dead. Like I am planning to do travel, have stuff come up, be in the, whatever, have other constraints that make it difficult for me to accomplish this goal with 100% efficacy. So build in the flex that like, okay, this is tough, but it's clearly setting high expectations for myself.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you for the rundown.
You're very welcome.
I'm going to ask a bunch of questions without necessarily a specific theme. So it's almost like a lightning round or treat it how you
okay.
you,
Should
how
I
you
answer
want
quickly?
to treat it. Sorry?
Should I answer quickly?
No, not
No,
necessarily.
answer slowly. Okay.
I'm just giving you that it's not, there isn't a cluster of questions on a specific topic.
Yeah.
What insights about life have you acquired that feels obvious to you now, but not to others?
Money doesn't make people happy.
I feel like that's obvious to a lot of people, no?
I think it is not obvious to a lot of people. Or maybe another one is that you should spend your money on experiences, not on things.
Maybe we're just in the bubbles where, we're
Yeah,
so
you're in the self-help
enlightened.
bubble, so you get all this shit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fair.
I think most people do not do either of those two things.
Interesting. Okay. What do you think people waste the most energy on?
What do they waste the most energy on? That's a really interesting question. What do they waste the most energy on? Okay, go for it.
I think people waste a lot of energy.
The most energy.
Or the most energy.
The most energy.
On thinking about things that they're going to be doing at some point down the line in the future versus actually doing them in the moment.
All right, that's a good one. I'll say they waste the most energy worrying about what can go wrong.
That's actually a good one. This reminds me of a conversation you and I have had multiple times about catastrophizing.
Yeah.
That people always have this idea, this very innate idea that the worst case scenario is going to be a giant catastrophe in any given situation. And that usually is like very emotional and irrational.
Mm-hmm.
Is that similar to what people are wasting energy on, like worrying / catastrophizing?
Yeah. I mean, there's like worrying where you're just like spinning your gears, like thinking about, oh, what if my girlfriend's going to break up with me? What if this thing is going to happen? What if blah, blah, blah. But then there's also just correctly, so there's like spending time worrying about that stuff and like spending energy worrying about this stuff. That's not useful. But then also there's, okay, if you're going to worry about it, like, it's not to say you should never worry. You should absolutely worry. There are things worth worrying about. But when you worry, do you worry correctly? And that's more what I'm pointing to is like, hey, if you're gonna worry about the downside risk, right? Like if you're worrying about, oh, should I, take my partner to a war zone? It's like, okay, yeah, you shouldn't do that. You should worry about doing that. That's a bad idea. There are really things to worry about. But then there's, okay, if I quit my job, I'm worried that I'm going to lose my apartment. I'm going to, end up becoming homeless. I'm going to have to go move back in with my parents. I'm going to da, 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 da. And it's like, okay, well, that is not at all the likely outcome. Vastly more likely outcome is that you will quit your job, you'll go look for a new one, and you'll get one. And if you don't get one, maybe you'll go for a little while before you get one. And if you don't get one then, you'll try to go back to your old job and they'll probably take you back. And there's like all these things in the middle before this like gigantic catastrophe that you're imagining. That's like a 1% chance.
I remember you and I had to talk about it when I was leaving Airbnb.
That's right. Because you were like, I'm going to die. I'm going to be homeless and they'll have to ship me back to Belarus and I'm going to move in with my parents and I'll have to relearn Belarusian. Or Russian.
Okay.
Yeah.
So catastrophizing. Who are your mentors today?
Who are my mentors? I'd say probably my primary mentor has been Naval. Before him, I would say Ned. This guy Ned Ruggieri at App Academy. He was a mentor to me. He taught me a lot, kind of took me under his wing. Besides that, I'd say I haven't really had mentors besides them.
Do you have a dream mentor?
A dream mentor.
It's, you know, how some people are like, can you be my mentor?
Yeah, I do get that a lot. Do I have a dream mentor? I can't think of one. Again, there's people I admire and respect. There are people I'd love to spend time with.
Okay, who are the top 3 people you'd like to spend time with? You know, this is the Luba show. It's an
This is the
opportunity
Luba
for
show.
those
Okay,
people
all right.
to hear you out.
Who do I want to spend time with? Hopefully they're listening and then they write
Yeah,
in.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's why
okay.
I'm asking you this question.
Okay.
This is your chance.
Who do I want to spend time with? I'd love to spend time with Ilya Sutskever. Probably the number 1 person I'd love to spend time with. He is just absolutely fascinating. Like every time I listen to him talk, I just get this depth of knowledge and insight about what's going on in AI, and just I don't know. I just love listening to him. Second person I'd love to hang out with is probably Tyler Cowen. He's an economist. Also listen to much of what he puts out and what he writes. And
I went to an event recently where he was.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
did you meet him?
I did not know. There was a bunch of people, and there wasn't like really a direct opportunity to meet him, but
Yeah,
it was in the periphery.
I did meet him once extremely briefly at an event, like 2017, a long time ago. We didn't talk, but I just said, "Oh, I love your work," and just went and sat down in a chair. And then who else would I love to meet? Would I love to meet? I mean, I'd love to meet Christopher Hitchens, but he's dead, so I can't meet him. But probably if I could meet anybody, living or dead, he would be the number 1 person.
Who's the third alive person?
Third alive person?
Yeah.
You didn't say that they had to be alive.
Okay, now I'm specifying that
You're
they have to
adding,
be alive.
this is extra constraints now.
Yes.
Okay, they have to be alive. A reanimated Christopher Hitchens. They like plug him into Neuralink and then just get.
Well, you can
moving
probably
again.
already do that with the LLM. You know, train the LLM.
Yeah, it's
on
not the same. It's not the same. You know, it's too stiff.
That's your answer?
That's my answer.
Okay, great. Okay, who shapes your thinking most right now?
Who shapes my thinking most right now? Who shapes my thinking? Am I being shaped?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the aliens are shaping my thinking. Maybe I have LM psychosis and they're shaping my thinking.
I think that's possible.
Yeah. I think that's probably the answer, is that like GPT-5 is shaping my thinking.
Are you mostly using GPT-5 these
Yeah,
days?
yeah.
Okay,
Primarily.
no more Claude?
I use Claude as well.
What about Gemini now that it's on Chrome?
I use a little bit of Gemini. Why are you trying to sell me something? I use a little bit of Gemini, but mostly when it's like uniquely good at the thing. But yeah, I use mostly ChatGPT and then some Claude.
Wait, are you using one of the AI browsers?
No,
Which browser are you on?
I'm on Chrome.
Oh, you're not using Gemini on Chrome.
No.
It's my hypothesis that everyone will convert to Gemini because it's now on Chrome, and most people use Chrome.
I don't use Gemini on Chrome.
Okay, got it. Well, I've also only tried it a couple of times. I haven't converted yet, but
Yeah, okay. So I mean, I have Gemini as a tab in Chrome.
Okay, got it. Okay, what's the best coaching advice you ever gotten?
Coaching advice, like
Yeah.
from a coach?
Coaching advice, specifically on leadership.
The best coaching advice I've gotten on leadership. Someone coaching me on leadership.
Yes.
I don't know that I can remember.
Okay, it's fine. Skip that question.
Okay, skip that question.
Okay,
Bad
okay.
question.
I hear you talk about movies a lot, but I actually don't hear you talk about books a lot. What are some books that shaped you?
Some books that shaped me. What are some books that shaped me? I'd say Siddhartha was a book that shaped me. Yeah.
What is a great book?
What other books shaped me? I don't know. They're books that I love. I don't know that I've been shaped by so many books. It shaped me. I don't know. I resisted the question. I don't feel very shaped.
Maybe that's something to examine and explore.
Yeah. I think I shaped myself mostly. I don't think like I was so shaped by other things.
I think you take too much credit.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, if I did get shaped, I don't think it was from books so much.
Okay. Are there any recent books that you've read that you really enjoy that you would recommend?
I did. I didn't. Well, I listened to an audiobook very recently that I thought was very good, which is totally orthogonal from anything your audience would care about. It is great. I think like a great trials in history. So it's like basically these sort of historical vignettes told through famous trials.
I don't think it's that orthogonal. It's people and people's incentives and motivations.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it's like the trial of Socrates, the trial of Galileo, going all the way to O.J. Simpson.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Top 3 movies everyone must watch.
Everyone must watch.
Yes.
Why must they watch them?
Because you recommended them.
Okay, all right. Okay. Top 3 movies everyone must watch. I mean, my favorite movie ever made is
Titanic.
That was number 2.
Wow, really?
No, not at all.
I was like, no
I've
way.
actually never seen Titanic.
Are you serious?
I am absolutely serious.
Wow.
I've never seen Titanic.
You must see Titanic.
I know what happens in Titanic, so I don't think I need to see it. But no, I never saw it.
Okay, so Parasite.
Parasite? I'm guessing your number one is Titanic.
I do like Titanic. Bless you.
Excuse me. Okay. So number 1, Parasite. Number 2, movie that everybody must see. I would say Samsara. And number 3, movie that everybody must see. Everyone must see. I don't know. It's hard to call it number 3. I'm imagining like what you're gonna like send out to the aliens. Yeah, I'm bad at number 3 because number 3 is like there's a finality to it. And I always like to keep the door open. That's right. That's right. I don't know. Maybe something like American Beauty or something. Yeah, it's a great movie. It's a great movie.
What do you still feel like you haven't figured out?
What have I not figured out? A bunch of stuff. I have not figured out what compels animal spirits to change in markets. I've not figured out why societies move away from liberal values and towards illiberalism. I've not figured out why people can so easily forget things that they believed very recently. A lot of these things still feel very unintuitive to me, very surprising to me. It's like the ways in which individual behavior changes so much in groups and in societies. That is still a little bit of a mystery to me.
Have you given up on those questions? Or
it's not that I've given up. I mean, some of them I've given up on, and that I just think they're kind of inscrutable. Like just complexity theory makes it said you'll never have a simple explanation of it. Others of them I'm still trying to get a better mental model of.
And last but not least, a very important question.
Yeah.
Is crypto happening?
Crypto is definitely happening. It's happening as fuck.
Awesome. Haseeb, it was great to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Luba.
Thank you for taking the time.
This was the best podcast of my life.
Amazing.
The
That's
best
what I like to
podcast
hear.
I've ever had. Thank you.
Awesome.